This is episode 278 of the Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Chase and Joel will take a look at the newest live-action retelling venture from Disney, also known as Aladdin 2019, as well as going over some trailers, including Terminator Dark Fate and some movie news involving Star Wars. All that and more on today's Reel Me In. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and it is a pleasure and a privilege that you have joined to listen to us in any way, shape, or form. It's always nice to know that you guys keep coming back for this delicious movie podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you are a new listener, welcome. What we do is, we'll go over some trailers and some movie news and talk about them, give you our commentary on them, and then, of course, review movies or a movie on said weekend that we record. Typically a new release, whether it be a blockbuster or indie film, and go into full depth reviews for you guys. And we might have some extra stuff after said review, including today's show. So you never know what you're going to get. That's what's kind of fun about it. But yeah, so if you are a movie connoisseur, a movie lover, and you are new, hopefully you can stick around and we can convince you to be a movie lover or come join us for next week. So yeah, so this is episode 278. Almost to that. The road to 300 is here, Joel. We are down that road. It's going to happen this year. For sure. We're also going to hit the 6-year anniversary mark, so a lot of good stuff coming up this year. Before I throw it over to my co-host, if you guys could, share this episode around, share the podcast around in general, and let people know this is your favorite movie podcast to listen to. There's been a huge amount of downloads and really big spikes in the past 3 episodes. I don't know where they're coming from. Keep doing your thing, guys. I might show Joel the graph and take a picture and show him and just show the big spikes between the Pikachu episode, the John Wick episode, and probably this one. I don't know who's sharing it where, and it won't even tell me where, but it's crazy. So thank you guys for doing that for sure. Speaking of the Joel stuff, he is over there. I already regret picking this movie for this episode, but I'm still going to truck along, and maybe Joel can liven things up and make me feel happy again. So, Joel, what is going on in your world, sir? How was your week? Did you catch up on anything? And I got a bone to pick with you, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Well, I could assume that the bone to pick is one of two things. Either, choosing this movie, which maybe
that's a given. I will not forgive you for the rest of the year for picking this as the main topic, but we'll move on from it, and I will tell you about the other one.
I saw Booksmart last night. Maybe we should have chosen that, but
probably
it's kind of. It's sort of like how we probably should have chosen Missing Link last month instead of Hellboy to talk about. But it's just what happens sometimes. You can never know how this stuff goes. We'll get into our review of Aladdin later, but. I guess the other bone to pick is a couple of movies that I caught up with in the past couple of weeks that inexplicably a lot of people find fun, and I don't find them fun. And that's the Happy Death Day movies. I caught up with the first one in order to catch up with the second one because I hadn't seen the first one back when it came out. But I was aware of, it had a pretty good reputation as being fun, and I just thought it was completely misguided and kind of dumb, and not dumb in a fun way before anybody says, but it's supposed to be dumb. No, okay. There's a difference between absurd and dumb. Something can be absurd and fun, and you call it dumb because there's really no other word you can think of at the time. But there's just dumb in that the movies have this really cool premise or a really cool gimmick, I should say. It's not really a premise, but they have a really cool gimmick, and the gimmick is always searching for a movie to connect to that, and neither of the movies really do that for me. The second one maybe slightly more so because we get a little bit of emotional content with her mother coming back. Spoiler alert, I guess. But yeah, that was sort of the couple of things that I caught up with in the last couple of weeks. I'm just not a fan. Just not a fan. I know, I
Did,
know.
did you even mention the franchise, or did you just go into it?
Oh, well, I said happy. I thought I
Oh,
said
okay.
Happy Death Day.
I was just like,
Maybe.
is he gonna say it, or is he just
Oh,
gonna just
okay.
trash on it?
No, it's Happy Death Day. If I didn't say that, I'm sorry. I think I remember saying it, but yeah, the Happy Death Day movies. Yeah. I mean, it's a cool premise. I had the same problem though with Before I Fall a couple years ago. It was interesting because 2017 had those two movies that were sort of genre takes on the Groundhog Day kind of thing. They were twisting it to be a different kind of movie. And Before I Fall was sort of a romantic drama. Didn't work at all either in terms of utilizing that. I think that there was that one movie. I think it's like a direct to DVD. It's a direct to DVD or maybe direct to cable movie from the 2000s that did it for Christmas. I don't know if you remember that or saw it. I can't remember who was in it either or the title, but there was one that did it, and I thought that one really did it well. But yeah, other than Groundhog Day, I haven't really been enormously, you know, or in the case of the Happy Death Day sequel, Back to the Future Part 2, I haven't really been super, or I guess, elements of Avengers Endgame too, kind of going back and commenting on the first movie's gimmick in some way, maybe made the second movie slightly better, but I just found it impossible to, first of all, like or be interested in the main character. I don't think that, Jessica Roth was trying, or Roth, or however you say her name. I assume it's Roth. She's trying. It's a pretty good performance, but it couldn't be a less interesting main character. And then when the second movie opens, it opens well, and it seems to not be telling her story anymore. And then it just starts over with her time loop, and I just felt like it was a cool gimmick in search of a movie, and I didn't like it. That was the big thing.
I mean, if you are admitting on live radio right now that you just committed a crime and not liking it, that's fine. If you want to go down that road and just say that you didn't like it, I mean, you're literally committing a felony, and you're cool with it. You're cool with going to jail and getting arrested after this, and I whatever. I was a little shocked to hear that Joel did not have fun with it. I know that it's not a large fan base, but there is a small fan base out there that loves these films. I'm one of them. I want them to make 20 of them. I wanted them to be a different subgenre each time. I want them to just go crazy with it. It is my Blumhouse version of like the Fast and Furious franchise. Just do whatever you want. I'm cool with it. But I am super sad to know that you did not feel the same way.
I would absolutely say what you just said about the Final Destination movie that's coming out.
I'm actually looking forward to that. So
yeah, basically just do, even if they're going maybe a little bit more serious, do exactly what you did, because I'm a fan of those movies, so I get it. Whenever you get behind something with high concept and it's a big franchise, you want to see it kind of just do its thing until it runs out of gas. And
now I would have been on I would have been on a different side, and probably more on your side, if Happy Death Day to You just repeated the first one and didn't really do anything. Well,
see, that's what it did, though.
They kind of did, but they injected.
They didn't change it up enough, and I wasn't interested in what the first movie did. So just redoing what they did wasn't of any interest to me. Basically, they started it out by saying that by making us believe that it was going to be a different story by following this other character who we thought was completely insignificant in the first one. And then if they had followed through on that and maybe made her kind of this background character in his time loop, that might have been fun. But then they just made it about her again. And I just, adding the stuff with the mother, but without doing anything more interesting with it. And also giving her a bunch of stupid things to do and an anticlimax involving the killer's identity. It's exactly what the first movie did. It's just slightly different, so
I won't
they can say that they did
on the killer's identity. I thought that was a little lackluster because the first one, like, that's what the main point was. The second one, They
It's not.
tried to.
It's not. It ends up not even being about her.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I just felt like that was, again, it's slightly more palatable than the first one because it's trying to do something different, but it isn't trying to do it enough. And I just, yeah, and considering how much I disliked the first movie, slightly better than the first movie isn't saying much. So I just
I
found
mean,
myself
at least I know, like when I go to my next doctor's appointment, they're going to be like, "So how you been feeling?" I'm like, I don't know, doc. I think I got more ulcers from my Crohn's." And he's just like, "Well, what's been stressing you out?" But listen, my co-host doesn't like the Happy Death Day movies, and it's really stressing me out. And then he's going to tell me to leave, and he's not going to take me seriously. And I'm just going to be really. Really disappointed when I have to go into the doctor's office and explain why Joel has caused me to become ill. So, besides watching a franchise that I love and you just took a huge dump on, how has your week been otherwise?
Oh, just my grandparents are here. We've been eating a lot. I've been working a lot because it's a sales week, so I haven't really been home a whole lot. And also I had jury duty on Monday. So there was the potential, I actually got picked for a jury panel. So there was the potential that I could be on a case, but I didn't make it to the jury panel. So I didn't end up having that, but I spent half a day after getting up at 6:30, which is not, I mean, this is normal for Chase, but it's not for me. I don't get up that early and I'm not functioning. So that was a bit of an annoyance, but otherwise, just been kind of working, doing a lot of stuff at home. As for my grandparents, we watched a movie or rewatched a movie. I think that they had seen it and forgot about it, but called Breach. It's from 2007. Has Chris Cooper, Ryan Phillippe, Laura Linney. If you haven't seen it, it's not on Blu-ray, but it's on DVD. They've never put it on Blu-ray for some reason. It's really worth checking out. It's from 2007, I think February. And it tells the story of Robert Hansen, who committed the biggest breach of security in the FBI's history. And he was coaxed out by CIA agents, I believe, something like that. And it's a really tense drama. It was sort of marketed as a Bourne Ultimatum type of thing, and I think that actually it was somebody involved in it was also involved in one of the Bourne movies, but it's fantastic. And it has this great performance by Chris Cooper as this guy who is really sharp and observant and also completely impossible to deal with. He's just a really, really nasty guy. He's not only doing all this stuff, selling information about the whereabouts of agents, but he's also kind of a sexual deviant. And he's been obsessed with swimsuit models. He's a weirdo, and it's a really interesting story, really tense movie. If nobody's seen that, definitely check it out if you can somehow. I assume it's somewhere streaming, unless you go out and buy the DVD. I don't know if the DVD is super findable. I don't know its availability, but it's certainly one worth seeking out. So we watched that one again. We just kind of been watching. They've been watching The Good Doctor, my parents and grandparents. I don't watch that show. We've been, we're all watchers of The Blacklist, which is a show on NBC, great show. So, just kind of hanging out with family. And so, what about you, sir? How's your week been?
It's just work is work. I'm slowly anticipating another job opportunity. Joel knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to think about the future and stuff with my fiance and moving up into the area and stuff. So it's exciting to know that life is moving forward. But I did have something happen on my my YouTube channel that quite shocked me. I've had them before, but I've accepted it and I just say take my money type of deal. But this makes no sense to me. So there's a lot of studios out there. They're very notorious for striking down videos for copyright and because you use their film footage or audio or whatever. I get that. And in my 10 plus years of having my YouTube channel, I have had short little skits and stuff that I've used copyright footage, and I just say, cool. Whoever put the notice on there, you were in every single right to take whatever I earn off it. I actually don't make any money on my YouTube channel, so that's why I allow it. I'm just like, cool, whatever. But if you get a copyright strike, it goes against your channel. And if you get 3 of them, your channel's done. I got my first ever copyright strike. And I was a little angry, Joel, because it was on our John Wick podcast episode. And so the reason why they struck it is because it had visual aid. There's no visual aid in it. This is an all 100% audio podcast. And so I did what you do is you do a counter notification. I went, kind of impossible. It's all audio. The only image that I use is for the thumbnail, and that is a poster that's released to the public. So I'm not using any footage from the movie. I never have. Joel and I have never used audio from any movie, so I don't know why they struck it down, and they rejected my notification. So now I have a copyright strike, and I'm just like, Lionsgate, why do you do this? Because them in Universal, well, and of course Disney, but I've never messed with Disney movies like that. They love striking people down without actually reviewing the material, and that just makes me so angry. It's like, if you just listen to it, you will realize there's nothing wrong with it, but they don't care. They're just like, oh, they copy right strike that thing. You know, we're going to believe them. It's just like, that's so stupid. So, yeah, I guess 2 more of my channel's terminated, so that's fun. But you guys don't have to worry about that because most of you guys get this podcast through Spreaker and CastBox and all that stuff, so I'm not worried about you guys, but it's just it is something that will irritate me because I've worked so hard on it for the past 6 years that I've been doing this, and you know, I'm getting to a certain point now where it's, you know, growing really well, and if I just get struck down 2 more times and it's gone, it's like I would be crushed. But I'm glad I still have this outlet. But yeah, I experienced that this week, and it was quite annoying. Also, and this has no reflection on my thoughts on the movie, but I love talking about movie theater experiences. Joel, I don't know what's in the water, but John Wick Chapter 3 and Aladdin, both times that I have been a part of the audience, they have lost their minds. They clap at certain moments, they cheer, they hoop, and they holler. And it's as if they've either never seen a movie before, or they haven't seen a movie in like 5 years. And so I'm like, I don't know what's in the air, Joel, but man, people are loving these past movies that we've been reviewing, and I'm keeping note of that. Like the people last night when we were seeing Aladdin, they were clapping and they were cheering. I'm like, what the? Are we watching the same movie? Like, it's wild, man. I don't know if it's because they don't get out often or what, but what do you think that is?
I don't know because I did not have that experience. I saw it at 6 p.m. on Thursday, and you know, it was a pretty good sized audience. It wasn't a full theater, but there were, you know, 7 o'clock showings and stuff. So I'm assuming that those were a little more full. It was a little bit more where, you know, people getting there after work and eating dinner and stuff. And so my theater was pretty quiet. I mean, they laughed a couple of times. There was one really funny moment in the movie. I'll get to that later on. That got a big response. Other than that, it was pretty quiet. But I will tell you that I saw Booksmart at 7:10 yesterday evening, and it was a rowdy crowd. They loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they really responded. That I also kind of walked in accidentally thinking that the last trailer was actually the lead into the movie for some reason, and it was the trailer for Good Boys or Good Kids or whatever it's called, and that went over really well. That was the last trailer they showed before the movie started, and that went over really well. And then it was just everybody was into the movie, and it was great to see. It's a really good movie. So
that's good. I can't wait to check it out. I know my fiance wants to see it. We'll see it eventually, but I'm gonna tell you guys, like, right now, I am stacked with screenings, and you're probably just like, "Oh, good for you." It's like I'm trying to work around with where
First
I can
world
see
problem, Chase.
right? Because I'm seeing Brightburn on Monday, and then it's Ma on Tuesday, yesterday on Wednesday, and then Dark Phoenix and The Last Black Man in San Francisco the next week. It's like it's just wild, man. So, one last thing before I get into the trailers. I don't like to hype up TV shows to the extreme often, but if there's something that I really like can get behind, I'm going to talk about it until the day I die. We've only seen 4 episodes, but it's actually not that much because there's 6 episodes per season, and I don't think they're doing a season 3, so there's only 2 seasons on Amazon Prime. Guys, this is one of the funniest shows I have seen in quite some time. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking, and we see the inside of the mind of the main character. It's Fleabag. It is raunchy. It is crude. It is clever, and it's just downright hilarious. But it's also got a lot of heart to it, and a lot of unexpected heart that you would not expect from this type of show. But if you're looking for more like mature comedy, and you just want to. And it's also, I think, it's definitely a European show. It's not made in America, so definitely that dry sense of humor. But with the fourth wall breaking, the main actress is just an absolutely delight. And so, if you're looking for something like that, please check it out. Fleabag. It's on Amazon Prime. So good. Okay.
Oh, and also I'm continuing slowly Game of Thrones. I've started season 2. I've gotten through season 1, started season 2. I'm not going to be able to, on my schedule, binge this thing or whatever. But I'm moving through it. So
I can't wait when you're done with it. Like, I want to have like an actual conversation with you and be like, okay, what'd you think of it? What'd you like? What'd you dislike? It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I already know most of what happens.
Right, but it's still experiencing it in terms of the story growth. So I'm curious to know what you think about stuff. So okay. So moving on into the trailer section. Went a little long on the opening. Sorry about that. But, it's just when I get with Joel, I can't contain myself. I'm just too excited. So the first trailer I want to talk about, get out of the way, is Abominable. And this one is the second Yeti animated film to come out. The first one was Smallfoot from last year. This one is actually from Universal. So this is their kind of counteraction to Warner Brothers with Smallfoot from last year. It's basically the same thing. It's about a magical Yeti, and he must return home to his family. I mean, what do you want me to say? It's the type of trailer to where when I was watching it, and you did not tell me, I could have told you that, is this Smallfoot? Are you showing me a Smallfoot trailer again? Yes, different animation style for sure, but it's still the same type of feeling, same jokes. It's just... Guys, it's for kids. If you're into that, if your kids are into that, I would suggest it. If you are by yourself and you want to make a choice to go see that movie or something else that weekend, you could probably pick something else. Didn't really tickle my fancy, so it is what it is.
I know what to schedule that week now. I'm kidding.
My God! Listen, I already made the sad mistake of picking Aladdin for this week. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. So. The next one is a very weird one because it played in front of Aladdin last night. Rightfully so. It's a PG-rated film. Aladdin's a family film. Okay. It's The Art of Racing in the Rain. And you're probably thinking to yourself like, oh, wow, that sounds really cool, right? No. It's basically like a Dog's Way Home, Dog's Journey. Every talking dog movie that you can think of, except they don't talk. It's just speaking from inside the head. This one is about a dog named Enzo as he recalls the life lessons he has learned from his race car driving owner, Denny. It's very awkward. I'm not going to lie. A lot of the humor comes from the dog. Not even any of the jokes come from the human characters. So it's very odd to hear this dog be sarcastic and have more of a personality than the human characters. It doesn't come across well to me. Kevin Costner is the voice of the dog, and it sounds like he's literally reading for the paycheck, sleepwalking through his vocal performance. Does not seem to care. Milo Ventimiglia is the race car driver that he's with. Amanda Seyfried is the love interest. I don't know what to tell you. It has the same flavor as A Dog's Journey or A Dog's Way Home. Now, obviously, they're not jumping through many different dogs' bodies when they die. It's the same dog starting as a puppy and growing up, but basically just being beside his owner and growing up with him. It doesn't look like it's anything special, but like I said, the one thing that was noticeable was Kevin Costner's delivery in the trailer. It's just the trailer ends on a joke, like a sarcastic joke from the dog, and no one in my theater laughed. And I turned to my fiance and I was like, that was really awkward. Like, what was that? And so, very strange indeed. But as long as I have This Is Us, I will continue to watch Milo in anything, but not anything like this. Okay, next trailer. This one, these next two caught me off guard because I knew they were coming. I knew who was in it. But I didn't know what their tones or styles were, and they really surprised me. So the first one, is The Art of Self-Defense. Now this one stars Jesse Eisenberg as a man who is attacked on a street. So he's helpless. He's a little bit of a wimp, so to speak. And then he enlists in a kind of a karate studio, dojo studio, and he starts to learn how to defend himself, develop a relationship with people in the class, develop a relationship with his sensei, and Imogen Poots is in this. I'm trying to think of who else. I think that's all the big names. Everyone else, some of them I can't even pronounce. I'm not even going to try that. I'm sure Joel's rolling his eyes right now. That's fine. But this one is directed by Riley Stearns, and I gotta tell you, I love this trailer. It has a real grounded reality that I really appreciate. It feels really local. It feels like we are literally in this small town, and everyone feels like a real person, and it doesn't feel like a Hollywood movie. It feels like, this really low budget indie film, which I really dug. The kind of black comedy that hangs over this movie is really sharp and really clever. A lot of times I laughed out loud, and it's really hard for me to laugh. During a trailer, I thought Eisenberg's performance in the trailer was really well done. Like, he does seem like a wimp at the beginning, and he slowly kind of progresses into this, not killing machine, but, a person you don't want to mess with. There's even a couple times where later in the trailer, people confront him, and he just immediately punches them in the throat because he's used to all these reactions and triggering his karate moves and stuff, and it's hilarious. And so I really enjoyed that. Really dry wit to it that is really great. So The Art of Self-Defense, starring Jesse Eisenberg.
In the rain.
Oh my God. As soon as you said that, my brain didn't click it, and I was like, oh, he just made that. He made that joke. The Art of Self-Defense, Racing in the Rain. So there you go. There's the combo movie. So between that and Zombieland 2, I think he's going to have a killer year. Jesse Eisenberg, that is. The next movie, love this trailer. This might be my favorite, but you're also competing against a Tarantino movie, so I don't know. But it is The Nightingale, and this one, pull up here, my internet's a little slow, excuse me, is directed and written by Jennifer Kent. She is the woman that brought us The Babadook, which I really enjoy. The Nightingale sets in 1825, so definitely kind of has the same color palette and same look as like maybe something like The Witch, even though it's a different director. Set in 1825, Claire, a young Irish convict woman, chases a British officer through the rugged Tasmanian wilderness, bent on revenge for a terrible act of violence he committed against her family. On the way, she enlists the services of a tracker named Billy, who is marked by trauma from his own violence-filled past. And the gentleman that plays Billy is a black person, and so that actually plays into the story. So I just wanted to clarify that. And so this one stars Sam Claflin. We have Aisling, Joel.
I haven't looked at the. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. So my bad on that.
Aisling Franciosi. There we go.
Franciosi. Okay. I almost had it. I had about 50% of it. So, anyways, this trailer dropped, and this one blew me away. Once again, harking back to the color palette of something like The Witch, a lot of muted grays play throughout the movie, and really makes everything else kind of pop, whether it be the action or the suspense, the violence and the blood. It's a really great look for it, and really kind of highlights the time period of the early 1800s. The performances look out of this world. The tension looks superb. This relationship that Claire and Billy have is really great. It looks like a really great horror drama, and I am totally down for that. It actually kind of reminded me of a blend of The Witch and maybe something like a Hereditary, where you're dealing with the overall look and feeling of The Witch, but the kind of story and substance of like Hereditary with like the family drama and everything. And I'm down for it. It looks fantastic. And it's from IFC. So IFC, it's your boy. I will review mostly everything you guys send me. So please send me this one because it looks wonderful. So between this one, The Art of Self-Defense, and the next one I'm about to talk about, this was a great week. And I'm sure you guys are all wondering what my thoughts are on the big one of the week, and we'll get to that shortly. And then the last one we're going to talk about, and I'll give Joel a heads up, it's after Terminator Dark Fate, is the one that he actually has more knowledge about, and he'll join in the conversation, but we'll get into that. The next trailer is the first full trailer of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This also dropped in the wake of premiering at Cannes this week, and it had a 6-minute standing ovation, so take that for what you will. A lot of people are loving this movie. A lot of people are mixed on it. Haven't really heard anything like too negative on the movie, so that's a good sign. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you guys know we've already covered this. This one features Leonardo DiCaprio as Rick Dalton and his stunt man, Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt, as they are in Los Angeles, Hollywood, 1969, and they're making movies and stuff. They come across people like Bruce Lee and, all these other famous actors, as well as Sharon Tate. And, of course, she is tied to Charlie Manson, and, you guys know that story. So, the thing that we reviewed last time was the teaser that just kind of sets up the tone, a little bit of the Tarantino dialogue, and some of the performances. This is like a full blown out. We get to see everything. It looks fantastic. I mean, it's just an expansion on the first trailer, so there's really nothing more to dive into. But we do get to hear a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more of the personalities from Dalton and Booth. Their camaraderie is pretty awesome. I love what like the smaller scenes when they're just sitting at a bar just talking, or like when he's introducing people to his stuntman. It's just, I don't know. I like the conversations that are had and the characters. It's really fun to watch, and we get to see some snippets of like Rick Dalton's filmography, and one of them, he has a flamethrower and he's burning down Nazis. So I'm assuming it was like a Holocaust film he was filming, and so it looked a lot of fun. And then it took into a kind of a weird turn where Sharon Tate is introduced as the actress, and of course she is tied to Charles Manson, and then of course Dalton and Booth get kind of tangled up in Manson and all that stuff, and so I'm curious to see how it plays out. But in terms of style, tone, dialogue, the way the performances look, because they look absolutely insane, I'm down for it, man. It just, there's really nothing more to say. It's Tarantino, but
it looks excellent. I watched this trailer too because
look at you.
Yeah, because it was, I gave certain allowances because of my list of anticipated movies, and it really does. I think that in the reviews that I've read, and the whole nonsense surrounding his request to film critics not to give anything away definitely gives me some ideas about how it ends.
I mean, obviously,
it's because of how critics treated Inglourious Basterds back when it premiered at Cannes, and I think that because they literally, some of them gave away the entire alternate history route in the headlines of their reviews, and it was very unfair. And I think that that's where he kind of took on this newfound kind of please do not reveal anything, and yeah, I mean that coupled with the equally nonsensical controversy surrounding a question he was asked during the press conference.
He always has controversy around every single movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, just ask what was his name, Guru Murthy, the guy who decided to take him to task on his violence ideas back when Django Unchained came out. The guy is not an easy interview.
You remember when Spike Lee nailed him to a cross when we used a lot of the N word in Django?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, this guy invites controversy. He just does his existence.
He's not afraid of it.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks really good. I can't wait. Give it to me now. It just sounds amazing. And then there was this funny thing that I heard that somebody asked him if he was going to re-edit it after the festival or something like that, and he's like, it might end up being longer, which
that's is perfect. Give it to me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he gave us a 3-hour Hateful Eight movie inside a single room for the entire thing.
Right, and Django was 240, so I mean, like he's no stranger to long movies.
Yeah, exactly. As long as he's, I would argue that maybe Django was either too long or too short. Give him the entire time he needs to make it work. And clearly, it sounds like he had that time this time. So that's a good thing.
I can tell you right now, regardless of what we think of both films, I mean, both of them might suck. We have no clue. I can tell you right now, Disney, move out of the way. I know you got Lion King in July. But when you have the bookend of Spider-Man at the top, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the bottom of the month, Sony's going to dominate July. It's going to be insane. Like, Disney, please move out of the way. Like, you don't know. They're going to have a front-loaded superhero movie at the top. They're going to have a really surprising, like, critical darling at the bottom. What a great strategy. And I'm so glad that Sony picked him up after the whole Weinstein debacle. So, good for them on that. And so the last trailer I want to talk about before Joel basically is going to take over the last one because I have no idea what's even happening in the trailer, but I'll give you my thoughts of what I thought what it was like. Okay. Terminator Dark Fate. Joel is the person, probably one of the few people that will always back up Terminator Salvation. I am not one of those people. I'm actually on the opposite end. I will back up Terminator 3. I think it's okay. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. And I watched them all in preparation for Genesis back in the day. And so I love the first two, obviously. Two completely different movies in style and tone, but they work. 3 was fine. Didn't like Salvation, didn't like Genesis. So we're looking at almost like a 50-50 split right now in terms of the Terminator franchise. And when you have another one coming out, directed by Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, producer James Cameron returns, which that's how it's labeled on the poster. I'm not even joking. From producer James Cameron returns. This one takes place right after Judgment Day. So 3, 4, and 5 are completely wiped away from history, as movies do nowadays. Halloween did that last year, where after number 2 is when the 2018 Halloween took place. It's crazy. Okay, so this one has Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton. She has returned from a faraway location, and she is gearing up with a team of agents who will fight against the T-1000s. So, once again, right after Judgment Day, this is when it takes place. I don't know what people are buzzing about. I didn't like the trailer. It's like it's whatever. It just reminds me of more of the same. Where I saw, I mean, obviously Salvation had a different look to it, different director for sure. But this movie looks like Genesis, and I don't want that to be the case. And it could be different. I'm not saying that Tim Miller is like a great addition. because as much as I like Deadpool, it's not something I immediately come up with at the top of my head and go, oh, Deadpool was great because of the directing. It's like, that's no. So getting him is not really a huge pull for me. And then also James Cameron came out when Genesis came out and said it was great. And he did the same thing with Dark Fate. I'm just like, I don't even know what to believe anymore. I'm done with this franchise. As I texted Joel earlier in the week, Paramount is run by a bunch of headless ducks. Between this movie, pushing Sonic back, and still coming out with the Dora the Explorer movie, Paramount is in a tailspin right now. I have no idea what they're doing over there. But this is kind of like, this is their big franchise. I don't care. And why is it coming out in November? That's such a weird date for that movie. If they're playing with the whole, like, Thor Ragnarok and Doctor Strange from Marvel and how they do it in November, it's like, that's not going to work, man. Were there a couple of cool moments? Sure. A couple ideas they could do that could work? Sure. But it's very action-oriented. It's not really story-driven. And I realize it's a teaser trailer. We're going to get more of the story in the second trailer. I didn't really like the CGI. I realize it's not finished. Cool, I'll give them that. But it just doesn't look good. The whole, morphing into the humans or vice versa, their human exoskeleton going into the robot. It doesn't look good. I didn't like it. So, yeah. Bringing back Linda Hamilton, sure. It's kind of like how I was with Halloween last year, where it's like, I didn't really care for the Halloween movie, but Jamie Lee Curtis, she's cool. I mean, there's no problem with bringing them back. But we'll just have to see. But the first show did not impress me. So that is all the trailers that I will pitch at you. The last trailer, and I will just introduce it and then give Joel the kind of ball so he can knock it out of the park with this, because I have no idea what's going on. But it is Downton Abbey. Fun little fact about me. Back in the day when I was even dumber than I was now, I actually thought it was called Downtown Abbey. And so I remember when I was searching it on the internet, I would type in Downtown Abbey and it would correct it to Downton. I'm just like, no, I'm trying to look up Downtown Abbey. Why are you saying Downton, Google search? And then I realized it was Downton, and now I'm dumb. So
that is the most Chase story in the entire world. I just
listen,
have to.
Man, it just it happens sometimes. So I actually thought for the longest time it was Downtown Abbey. So there's that. But it is Downton Abbey. This is the movie based on the series, and Joel knows the timeline of it. So I'm just going to keep it brief with my thoughts. Believe it or not, I actually like the trailer. It actually feels epic, and I've never even seen the show. Like, it feels like this, like, stamp of a movie that's like, this is like the series finale. Like, this is where it's all going to come to head, and it plays out like a very epic drama, and I really appreciate it. It reminded me of the Deadwood trailer, where I've never seen an episode of Deadwood, but that trailer made it seem like this movie was like an event, like, for the people that watch the show, and it felt like this series finale button on the show. And so the trailer feels the same way. It looks gorgeous. Everyone is, acting their butts off. I for someone that's never seen a lick of the show, I actually love the trailer. So that's as far as I can go with it. I want to start the show soon so I can watch the movie. But for right now, I really love the trailer for what it was. Joel, take it away. What did you think of the trailer? Because you have seen the show.
Yeah, I love the show, and it's really interesting to hear the perspective of somebody who hasn't seen it, because it's weird. As much as I love this trailer, and it is a pretty fantastic trailer, it is, from what I can tell of the plot, not at all the epic drama you're thinking it will be. Because this is very much okay, so the setup here is that the inhabitants of Downton Abbey are welcoming the king and queen to Downton for the first time. We've never seen that happen in the show. They've certainly been mentioned, and this does take place in the real world, so we'll be having people play early versions of, I think. Oh no, actually, it might be the predecessors, because this series began in the 1910s, in in England, and so then you kind of traveled through I think it's in the 30s now, or maybe the 20s, probably the 20s. So yeah, I mean, it covered a lot of ground. It's very much like reading a series of novels in a certain way. But the reason that I said what I said about how this doesn't seem all that epic, and that's not a criticism or anything. It's just an observation of the fact that basically this is akin to a very special episode of the show. It's already pretty much tied up all the loose ends of the plot, so we're basically just picking up with kind of a new minor adventure with the characters. We know everything and have seen everything that we really need to see. There's nothing that the series finale, which was technically well after what we thought was the series finale, because what they did was they played it through. It ended kind of in early, I think it was 2016 maybe. And then they had a Christmas episode almost a year later, and that's where they actively wrapped everything up, everything that we needed to know. And now what they're doing is they're bringing back, a number of the characters, not all of them, but a number of the characters for this one last kind of adventure that's kind of unique for them. So I do like that they've got, pretty sure Julian Fellows, who is the series creator, is the one directing this. I'm going to verify that real fast. Oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry. He is writing the screenplay, but it's a director named Michael Engler who's making it, and he is a TV director. He's worked on stuff like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and Sex and the City, 30 Rock. But anyway, it is Julian Fellows, creator of the show. He's also the guy who wrote Gosford Park back in the day for Robert Altman, and which is an excellent movie. Everybody should see that. Great sort of Agatha Christie callback. And yeah, I mean, it's an excellent trailer. It's really interesting that they're going kind of this direction with it, because it's kind of what we're used to. That might be, I guess maybe I undersold it a little bit. It may not be that it's a single episode, but it sort of seems like a season trajectory. It's definitely not tied to the main story of the family, which has shifted a lot because of almost losing Downton Abbey, because of a bad investment, and also losing a couple of family members, probably two of the most gutting deaths this side of Degrassi or 24. Or Game of Thrones, I guess, would be the more topical thing to bring up. But the two major losses in the show were ones that came completely unexpectedly for the characters they happened to. And so that really shaped the rest of the show after that. It was actors, exiting their contracts. And so they decided to, make it the most dramatic thing. And I think that they both basically happened within a year of each other. You'll find that out. And they also both happened around the time that the Red Wedding occurred on Game of Thrones, and also a major, like the co-lead character of The Good Wife died at the same time in the same period. And so like right in a row, we had these big TV events of characters dying exactly when we did not expect them to, suddenly, and almost not tied at all, to the main plot. And so it was really interesting to see all of that happen to these shows at the same time, particularly The Good Wife. That's a whole other story in itself, because that character died as a result of a minor subplot and was the co-lead of the show. But yeah, in the case of Downton Abbey, the two characters that died, it is crushing. And so really excellent show, great performances. I'm glad that you're able to notice those here. We have a couple of new characters. One's played by Imelda Staunton. The other is a girl that seems to kind of capture the heart of okay. So one of the characters here is played by Alan Leach. He's an Irish nationalist, and it's somebody close to him is one of those two characters who died. So it's nice to see the fact that he can kind of start up something with somebody else, and Yeah, they're new. Of course, the whole premise is that they're welcoming the king and queen, and they're going to host them for a meal. And so the kitchen staff has to be ready. The other people kind of get into a competition with. They kind of get into a competition with the staff of the king and queen, who kind of consider themselves to be above the Downton staff. That's something that we've seen in the series before. But it's on a bigger level, and I think that this widens the world of this house, of this mansion, kind of considerably, and I really like what I'm seeing here. So yeah, big fan of the series. I really am looking forward to what they have up their sleeve with this one. It comes out in September. I think it's on a weekend. I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be the one that we review because I don't know what else comes out that weekend, but we'll see. I think that it's, let's see, September 20th. I'm gonna look this up real fast, guys. Just bear with me because I don't have this page open. But let's see. So July, September. Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's the 13th, and it looks like it's very much going to be the biggest thing that's coming out that week. So it may be that we do, in which case, yeah, totally catch up with it. It's easy to do that. It's 6 seasons, but it's only 52 episodes, and they're all rather long, but still, there just weren't very many because it's a BBC show. That's how they operate. Sherlock only has like three episodes a season or something, so that's how they do it. I think they're called series over there. Actually, each series is fairly short. So really great program. Love all the performances, particularly Maggie Smith has a lot of fun as the Dowager Countess, the one who kind of is the matriarch of the Crawley family. That's what they're known as, and yeah, I love what I'm seeing here. So there's my take on it. All right, and I'm glad to hear that you like the trailer too. Coming at this as somebody who's never seen it before, seen the show. I'm glad that it was able to appeal to somebody who hasn't experienced it yet.
Well,
so
I'm also a sucker for period dramas, so you got me.
Yeah, it's really a fantastic one too. So that's good. All right. So we've finished the trailers, and we're going to go on to the news. Luckily, there's not a whole lot of news this week. There really wasn't anything that happened much, but there was a big Star Wars thing that developed. There's going to be another trilogy, and this is a separate trilogy from the one that's being developed by Rian Johnson, assuming that ever happens, and also David Benioff and D.B. Weiss of Game of Thrones. They're working on one, and that's going to be the next one. That's going to be the trilogy that dominates the 2020s. I don't know what this means. This new trilogy that's just come up. I don't know when it's going to come out. I really have a lot of questions about how they're going to schedule this, but it's a trilogy surrounding a video game series. I'm not super familiar with. It's very popular though, and it's Knights of the Old Republic. So this is going to be the third trilogy, I guess, that they're working on, that they're trying to develop. I feel like maybe they need to slow down a bit, but whatever the case, this one's going to be a show run by Lita Kalogridis, who had her first credit one of her first credits with Martin Scorsese's movie Shutter Island, and then she kind of moved on to more franchisey stuff like Alita Battle Angel she co-wrote, and Terminator Genesis, which, okay. But she's the first woman to be a writer on the series since Lee Brackett co-wrote The Empire Strikes Back. That's pretty exciting. And I can't wait to see how this comes out. It's a series that takes place 4,000 years before anything we've ever seen. It follows kind of the one of the first conflicts between the Jedi and the Sith. It mostly focuses on a Jedi named Bastila Shan and a Sith Lord named Darth Malak. Or Malak, or I don't know how to say his name. But I'm excited for this. Chase, I'm assuming that this is sort of a take it or leave it for you.
Yeah, back in the day when I was definitely a fatter loser. That's a great way to put it because I was. But I played a lot of video games. Now, I never played Knights of the Old Republic. I know my friends did, and I would watch them play it occasionally. It looked like it was fun. And if you talk to a lot of Star Wars fans, a lot of them will say, like, if I had to be like, what is the one story you want to see made into a movie within the Star Wars lore? A usual top three from them, Knights of the Old Republic will be in there somewhere. And they introduced the kind of the Knights of Ren, so to speak, in like The Force Awakens. So like they're kind of dabbling into that stuff already, which is great. So I personally never played the games, but the actual story and the mythology of Knights of the Old Republic, because I have read a couple of things about it. It sounds intriguing, and I think this is actually perfect for a Star Wars film. It's going to feel epic. It's going to feel like this war epic, and you're setting yourself in a different time frame, different galaxy. It's not going to be in the same type of Skywalker lineage. Is going to be its own separate thing, which is great. I want them to keep it fresh and keep everything new, but it sounds really exciting.
Very cool. Yeah, we're both on board for this one. I can't wait to see what they do, particularly with sort of what's going to have to be kind of, well, new old, I guess, production design and stuff, because this is definitely not going to look like what we've seen before. That's just how civilizations happen, and so it's going to be interesting to see them take on kind of this old world feel. I can't wait for the scope and the scale of this thing. Might be pretty tremendous. So can't wait for that. All right, now our next story is, I guess, only kind of a story, but it's the fact that Christopher Nolan's new movie has a title, and now we kind of know the premise, or at least we know the general direction that this is going, and it's really exciting. So the title of his new movie is Tenet. That is Tenet, which is a word that means a principle or belief, especially one of the main principles of a religion or philosophy. So this one, basically, we don't really know the plot. We know that it's an adventure that spans the globe that kind of mixes Inception and Interstellar with North by Northwest. And all I'm trying to think of now is the fact that basically this is a time travel spy movie. So that'll be really fun to see him take that on. And straight off of something like Avengers Endgame taking advantage of time travel. I'm a big fan of when they do time travel really well. Love the Back to the Future movies. Looper's a lot of fun. So I'm a fan of this. It's also got a great cast headlined by John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, and Elizabeth Debicki. It's also got Aaron Taylor Johnson, and he's reuniting with Michael Caine and Kenneth Branagh. And it's also got a really good crew, people that he hasn't really worked with before. So he is, there's a couple of people here that he's worked before with, Hoyte van Hoytema from Dunkirk, the cinematographer there, his regular production designer Nathan Crowley, and costume designer Jeffrey Kurland. He's also working with Ludwig Göransson, who did the score for Black Panther and Venom. He's done a lot of what am I trying to say? Superhero movies. So that's pretty cool. He does really good score work. And also visual effects supervisor Andrew Jackson. Yes, the 7th president of the United States.
I knew
all right.
I knew he was in the film business. I wasn't really entirely sure. I thought it was either that or like the seafood business, but the film business makes sense.
There we go. Once he died several dozen years ago, he joined the film business. And he's also working alongside a new editor, Jennifer Lame, who edited Hereditary. So I can't wait for that. I'm excited for this. I like how the title pretty much goes with his usual titles, which is, it's very vague, but you'll get it when you see the movie. Maybe not Dunkirk, but obviously Memento is a nice little vague title. I'm getting a sort of a vibe of of him kind of borrowing the concept of having titled Memento after basically Memento is something to remember. Obviously, that's what that whole movie's about. So I like how he titles it after a single word that really makes sense when we hear it. So yeah, I can't wait for this. Are you as excited after hearing that it might be a time travel spy movie? Because that's what I'm getting from the descriptions of this.
If Christopher Nolan was in his house and he was just like he was secluded from society, didn't come out of his house, and was like there for like 12 years, right? And he announces a press conference on his front lawn. He walks out in his pajamas and he goes, "I'm going to make a movie about the history of the mop." And he walks back into his house. We'd all be flipping out. This is the type of power that this guy has, that he just goes, "Here's my movie title, here's who's in it," and people go ballistic. I'm one of those people. He can literally pitch me anything, and I'd be down for it. This is a great cast. If you would have told me in 2010 that Robert Pattinson would be this big now, I would have looked at you like you're crazy, but I'm glad to know that we can watch more movies beyond that franchise and realize that he is a true talent, and people see that. Christopher Nolan did the same thing when McConaughey won his Oscar, tapped him to be an Interstellar, so that makes sense. I love the Göransson pick. A little sad that Hans Zimmer's not going to reteam with him, but Hans Zimmer's a busy dude, and Göransson just won an Oscar for the score of Black Panther, so that makes sense to me. The thing that people are pointing out, and I didn't even realize this until I looked it up, but Göransson actually put on his Instagram that he was working with Christopher Nolan, and the logo for Tenet is up there, and it has the same logo pattern as Inception. So I'm wondering if it's going to be like this pseudo sequel, same universe type of thing as Inception, and so maybe also tying Interstellar. We might be looking at a Christopher Nolan shared universe, folks, and I'd be okay with that. But it's very peculiar that Göransson would put this up, and it's red. It's got the maze pattern to it on the letters. It looks exactly like Inception, so that makes me wonder, okay, maybe it's going to be, like I said, a pseudo sequel, not like a direct sequel, but something that's in the same universe as the going inside someone's dream. So cool, I'm down for it. And the way Joel described what Tenet actually means, yeah, that totally sounds like a Christopher Nolan type of thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I always look forward to his movies, even if his movies are polarizing. I know Interstellar was kind of polarizing to people. I love that movie. I can exclude the whole end bit with "it was all about love, Murph." If you take that part out, like I like 99% of it, so I'll give him a pass on it. Dunkirk was great. Inception's great. I love all three of the Batman movies. I mean, he's just Memento and Insomnia. The guy is just a true talent. I even got a chance to see his first film, The Following. I think it was on Netflix or something. I watched it. It's a very short film. It was also really well done. I was like, hey, for your first time out, it was great. It kind of reminded me of Aronofsky and his weirdness that he did with Pi. It was both black and white, kind of had that abstract type of feeling. So, yeah, for me, Christopher Nolan's really never been weak to me in terms of a filmmaker. If you want to talk about, like, my least favorite, as in, like, I don't want to pop in as much as the other films, and this is still a good movie, it's probably The Dark Knight Rises, but I still like that movie. So if you want to talk about the weakness of Christopher Nolan, it does not exist to me. Unless he makes an absolute clunker, I just, the guy just always does well for me. And, he always knows how to pick his cast. He knows how to release his films. Like, he's one of these filmmakers that's just like, I'm going to make a movie and people just go crazy. It could literally be called Pooh, and people will just lose their mind. I'll be like, yes, give me that Pooh in 70 millimeter IMAX. Great news all around. But kind of a light news week.
You've heard your challenge, Christopher Nolan. Make a movie called Pooh.
Just simply Pooh. 70 millimeter IMAX
Chase,
special engagement.
just for Chase, though. Just only for Chase. No, I'm just kidding. He's a great director. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about his weakest? For me, it's Insomnia, but I still really like it.
Right,
So
that's what I'm saying. Like even
yeah,
like
he's
the weakest
fantastic.
of his films, like we all still like. So it's just
Yeah,
like it's crazy.
it's fantastic. Following is my one regret. I haven't seen that. I need to. I know, but yeah, haven't gotten to it yet. All right, so our final bit of news, and I'll make this quick because there's really not much to it. But of course, the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer came out. I didn't see it, of course, but I have seen the pictures of Sonic the Hedgehog himself, and it was universally panned as looking horrible, particularly his teeth or something. So Sony or the director, Jeff Fowler, decided to announce that they were going to work on that and remake him. So that, of course, involved moving the film because they weren't going to be able to remake their main character. You know, they did this once. They did this once before. It's a completely different scenario, but it was the same kind of pressure, and that was, of course, replacing Kevin Spacey in All the Money in the World, and it was Sony again. So
Well,
it just can't get any.
Sonic is Paramount.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is Paramount. I totally forgot about that. I apologize. So they're basically they were faced with kind of a similar logistic kind of struggle with this in terms of replacing a major character with something else. You know, that's what it is. And yeah, so they moved it from this November to February 14th of next year. Okay, I mean, as long as they don't overwork all of their visual effects artists and do that, it just, you know, for me, it's just like, okay, maybe they should have just released the movie and dealt with it. Honestly, that's my feeling. I don't know about you, but that's where I am on it. But I guess if you want to please fans, then this was a smart move. So it's sort of like I'm caught between those two thoughts. You know, I don't want them to like put way too much work in this. It's still, you know, it still may just be a bad movie. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Are you in the same boat, or did you think that they needed to, I mean, go ahead and redesign it and move the movie anyway?
I absolutely hate this because it brings up a lot of different things, and I'll try to go down the list. One, Joel brought up, I hate the fact that they're going to overwork these animators and all this for probably not little to no like overtime pay. It's just it's so stupid. And I realize that when you have an animated movie and you create your character design and you put it into the system, and you have to like animate and all that stuff, you have all those like prefixed things in the computer. So obviously just changing a design, it wouldn't be too bad because all you got to do is just change the design and keep it in the same animated path as your old design and just kind of replace it. So you don't have to redo everything, but it's still a lot of work. And the second thing is, why are we listening to people? Why are we listening to a small group of people out there cry tears for a movie that they're not even going to watch? Joel also just made a great point. Who cares if they change the design? The movie still looks like garbage. So even if you change the design of the character, the story looks the same. It's going to have the trailer is going to be the same. It's just Sonic is going to look different. So all these people whining and moaning about the look of a character, they're probably not even going to watch the movie anyways, because it's probably going to get slammed by critics. Because from the way the trailer looks, I'm not even talking about the design of the character. I'm talking about the way the story flows, the cheesiness of Jim Carrey. It does not appeal to me. It's more for kids and families. These people that are whining and crying are Joel's age and my age, and they're even older. They're not going to go watch this movie. That's what blows my mind. These people crying about the design, they're people our age, Joel, and some of them are even older, and I just don't feel like they're going to even watch the movie to begin with. So they're whining about nothing, and then they're putting all these animators into overtime, pushing it 4 months, which, to be fair, it is better than trying to cram it into November. So I will give them that. But I think this is stupid to listen to people. Now, you know, what about Disney? Can you imagine if they bent the knee and they tried to change the look of the genie before it came out due to the outcry of the first trailer? It would be a madhouse. And I'd be like, why are we listening to people? And so
they would have had nowhere to put that movie.
That's what I'm saying. And so it's just, I think the whole thing is dumb, and you're going down a slippery slope of giving people like us, like Joel, myself, you guys, power. Don't do that. Let people do what they want creatively, and we can judge the final product afterwards. Because this whole harkens back to last week with people going, oh, I'm going to sign this petition to get all of Season 8 of Game of Thrones redone. What the? It's just, if you don't like the vision that the showrunners and the writers went with, cool, that's up for debate. But to say to redo the whole thing because of a couple of moments is so dumb. Do not give power to people like this. It just, the whole thing just rubs me the wrong way. And like I said, the people whining and moaning and taking their time out of their day to write a nasty comment on how gross Sonic looks. A, they're not going to even see the movie, and two, this movie's not going to make its money back. I see this movie flopping, hardcore. So putting all this work into overtime, it makes no sense to me. And then it just, I don't know. I just feel bad about it.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same here, and it's interesting because, yeah, I mean it's very comparable to if Disney had kowtowed to the masses about the genie, which yeah, we'll get into the design in our review in just a few minutes, but it's very interesting to consider that it was the main character of their movie. Now, the kids who see the movie aren't even going to be aware of the controversy because of the fact that not a lot of kids are on social media. They don't pay attention to outrage like this. A lot of them have already seen the trailer, so they're going to be really confused when it gets closer and closer to November. They don't see another trailer, and then suddenly there's this trailer for the movie, but Sonic looks different. Now, what are they going to do with the marketing of the movie that already exists? Are they going to all the money in the world it? Because that's what I'm thinking they're going to do. We have that trailer that I think, well, the trailer's, I guess, still viewable, but the first trailer with Kevin Spacey in it, went away, basically. I think you have to search it. I don't think it's really on Sony's YouTube channel anymore in any particularly significant capacity. So is it going to be the same? I mean, is this what we become? That was an understandable bit of outrage to change the movie, and that was justified. This was just a few people who had a problem with the look of the character.
It's a small minority, and that's what I hate about it. It's literally a small group of the internet doing their petition and their whining and their crying, and Paramount going, "Oh, these people don't like it. We should probably change it." It's like, you're right. The people that go see this,
millions of dollars.
The people that go see this movie are kids. First of all, they're not even old enough to sign petitions. They don't even know the controversy. They don't even know what's going on. They just see a movie and go, Mom, Dad, I want to see that. Okay, cool. We'll take you, little Jimmy, little Sally. We'll go, and then I'm going to just sleep in the back. Like, that's what this movie is. I'm telling you, the people that are moaning the most about this, they're not even going to see this movie, and that's what irritates me the most.
And man, the budget for this thing is already $90 million.
Which means it's going to go over 100 at this point.
Yeah, well over 100. Probably close to, considering it's the main character, probably close to like 120. Because that's what I'm guessing. And then, what are they going to do about the competition in February? Because we're going to have a bunch of stuff come out. I don't know, man. It's pretty crazy.
Changing a character design is not going to change the story, the tone, the feeling of the movie. It's literally just a look of a character. This is not going to change the fact that the movie looks like 1997 cheesy comedy garbage. Like, that's what I don't like about it. I was like, okay, cool. The trailer does not appeal to me. I don't like it. And then people are like, the design. I'm like, it's not going to make the movie better. Yeah, it's not going to make the movie better. So I'm just like, it's stupid, man. I can't stand it.
eventually people are gonna like be outraged by the entire look of a movie petition, and then the people are just gonna remake the entire movie, and it's gonna be insane because that opens the door. It opens
It
the door for
does.
something like that to happen, where they're just it's all about prejudging movies based on trailers, and maybe in the context of a terrible movie, the design would have worked.
Yeah, it might have. We
It's
have no
kind of
clue
a
now.
backhanded compliment, but it may not have mattered in the long run that the main character doesn't look good because the rest of the movie isn't. I'm just saying that if it was a good movie, maybe,
Yeah,
but
maybe.
and it may be a good movie. You never know, but
Yeah, who knows? But the
yeah,
way the trailer was sold and the way I watched it, I was like,
there
yeah,
was a
not,
lot more to worry about.
yeah, I was
than
just like, it's not for me.
yeah.
And then I go online, people are like, that design. I'm like, that's not the main issue, folks. Let's talk about the baldness of Jim Carrey and the caterpillar on his face. I mean, let's talk about his character design. Yes, he looks like Dr. Robotnik, but he also looks awful. So
Before every episode, I now want you to say the design.
the
All
design.
right. Okay, guys.
Okay, and if you guys are listening out there, if you guys have been lifelong fans and you did sign this petition, that's cool. I have no hate against you. I'm just telling you that Joel asked me what I thought about it. I think it's stupid. So there you go.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get into our main review now, which is, of course, Aladdin. This is the latest attempt by Disney to make what they've already made. And that is, of course, the 1992 animated classic about a homeless orphan who lives on the streets of Agrabah, sort of a Middle East country a fictionalized one. And he's struggling to eat. Meanwhile, a princess named Jasmine. By the way, I guess I should structure my sentences better. A homeless orphan of the title, his name is Aladdin, is struggling to eat on the streets of Agrabah. Meanwhile, an isolated princess is being prepared to marry a prince, a far-off prince, in order to fortify a military alliance between the countries. That's pretty typical of these kind of old world civilizations, and it's one of those plots. It's pretty much the same movie as the original. The villain of the movie conspires against the Sultan, and in so doing, convinces our hero, who has kind of developed a thing for the princess because of a happenstance meeting between the two, to go out and find him a treasure, and that treasure is an oil lamp in which resides a genie that can fulfill 3 wishes. Now, the key to the original movie was the genie. He was voiced by Robin Williams, and here we have a recasting situation. Of course, I think we would have anyway, but of course Williams passed away about 5 years ago now. So now they've got somebody who's also a comedian, who's also a very gregarious kind of presence in movies, and that is Will Smith. He's the one who plays the genie here. We also have a couple of different things going on with the plot, including the political aspirations of the villain. He wants to attack instead. He basically wants to set Agrabah in an attack posture toward all the other countries. That was not something that the Jafar of the original movie wanted to do, but also we have the fact that the princess wants to be sultan. This is a new motivation for the character. That was not something that was in the original movie either. So that gives you an idea of what's going on here. It's pretty much the same movie with just a couple of changes. And Chase, I'm going to hand it over to you. There's not much to say about the movie. And
there
I know
really
that
isn't. And that could
there really isn't. Yeah.
Well, and here's the deal: is that you guys have no idea what I'm going to say, because that could go either way. I could either say like, "Oh, this movie's so great, there's really nothing wrong with it," or I could say the opposite and just completely bash it and say a little good thing. So, okay, back when Joel and I were wee little infants, from 1989 to 1994, he and I were blessed to be alive during the Disney Renaissance of the late 80s, early 90s with The Little Mermaid, The Rescuers Down Under, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Lion King. Now, we have gotten two of those remade. One of them is coming in July, so that's three of them. Little Mermaid will come out soon, and The Rescuers Down Under would be absolutely horrifying to watch in a live-action CGI hybrid. So that's why they're not going to remake that one. Okay, so my history with these movies goes as follows. I did not like Alice in Wonderland. I thought Cinderella was the better of the bunch. The Jungle Book is, I'm coming around to it. I thought it was just okay, slightly good. I'm kind of living in that C plus B minus range, but still way better than Alice in Wonderland. Did not like Beauty and the Beast, and we have no idea how Lion King is going to play out. Obviously, Joel and I are going to be a little biased because we grew up with the originals and we have a soft spot for them. They were the quintessential movies to watch as a child growing up in the early 90s, late 90s, whenever you got around to them. This is what you watched. These movies hold a special place in our hearts. I am not one to say, let's remake everything for nostalgia's sake. Just make it a good movie and we'll go from there. Alice in Wonderland. Did not like it. That's strike one. Beauty and the Beast. Did not like it. Strike two. Aladdin is strike three. I am done. I just don't see myself ever appreciating these movies, these live action retellings or full CGI retellings. I'll give Lion King a shot, and that is the movie we're going to be reviewing that weekend, so obviously I'm going to have to see it, and I will go in with an open mind. But watching Aladdin made me super depressed and realize that this is the third strike for me, and I don't want to see any more of these movies. Unless, Joel and I schedule them, I just don't care anymore. I walked out of Aladdin feeling empty, and I was wondering how to phrase my feelings, and our good friend Mark, which Mark, myself, and Joel, we all give it the same grade, by the way. Spoiler alert. But the way he described it was it just felt useless. I agree. It felt like just a complete waste of time and just useless and didn't really add anything new to the table that I thought was even good, because they did change a few things, but even those changes didn't really work for me. It just really felt random. It just felt like a movie that was obligatory, where it had to hit certain, beats and paths, and you have to do this because that's what the original did, and it didn't flow well in live action form. So, yeah, I didn't like this movie, and I actually think it's on the same par as Beauty and the Beast. I'm not going to say it's a complete disaster, given my grade, but there are some good things, but it's just something I don't want to watch again, and just feel really disappointed by. So, I guess to start out with some of the positives, so I'm not such a bitter old biddy, if you will. The costume design and some of the production design is actually quite extravagant. And for creating something in that type of environment where you have to create, street corners, street markets, and make it seem really crowded with people, the costuming has to be on point. The production design, to some degree, has to feel like a real grounded location. So there's a lot of work and effort put into the landscape of this area down at the bottom, and then when you go into the palace, some of the stuff is kind of gorgeous to look at in terms of production design and costume design. It's really great stuff on that level, and I will not take anything away from them on that. That's really hard to do, to capture that visual look to it. So I actually think on that level they did a pretty good job. The actual singing voice, not the songs, not the lyrics, not how they're executed. The actual singing from a Naomi Scott was really well done. She has a natural voice for singing, so I really appreciated hearing her voice because all the rest, no thank you. But she was a brighter spot in that regard. The last good thing I will mention, regardless, well, I'm going to get into the look, so I won't say that. The look of the genie is questionable, and we'll get into that, but Will Smith, as an actor, performer, inhabiting this character, didn't do as bad as I thought he would do. He was fine. And I honestly thought he was the better part of the movie. Every time he was on screen, he was very, very light, very vibrant type of character. He wasn't replicating what Robin Williams did. He made his own thing. It's whatever. It's fine. But he wasn't as atrocious as I thought he would be in terms of, being a genie. So bleeding into the bad stuff, I still don't like the look of the genie. I never did, never will. I think it's a bad idea to have Will Smith's face on a floating genie body that looks like he bench presses 600 pounds. Does not work for me. If you were going to do it, I wish you would have done it like the the animation where you create the genie look and have Will Smith be the voice, and it would have been 1,000 times % better because I wouldn't be so distracted seeing Will Smith's head composited on a very, very strange looking bulk genie body. So there is that. So character and performance wise, it was tolerable, it was fine. The look of the genie is still questionable. I still don't like it, even in context of the film. No, thank you. Speaking of the other performers and the other characters, I guess because a lot of people are praising Mina Masad as Aladdin. I didn't like him whatsoever as the lead. Yeah, he's charming. It's kind of likable, but that's all I got from him. I didn't really feel any emotional oomph from any of the scenes, whether it be pulling the drama out of him or pulling the relationship that he had with Jasmine. It was just non-existent to me. I didn't really feel like he was Aladdin. It just felt like, cool, they got a very charming, good-looking, likable actor playing this role. Didn't really sink his teeth into the role. It just felt like, yeah, he was there. Oh, and his singing is not good. I did not like his voice. I did not like the delivery of his vocals. It was just miles below what Naomi Scott did. Will Smith is on the same level. Yeah, he's had his, actual singing career, back in his Fresh Prince days, which could be light and fun, but I still don't like his singing voice in this movie. Naomi Scott's the only tolerable one when it comes to that. But back to Mina, I don't like him as Aladdin. Just the whole time I didn't feel anything. Naomi Scott as Jasmine, she's fine. I think the biggest strike against them is that their chemistry was non-existent. It was so off. I was like, there's no way that these two characters are falling in love. Never felt that even once, because the movie starts out with them meeting each other within the first 5 minutes, and it's like at that point, like, you're hot, you hot, let's get together. And it's like, okay, I can understand that from like an attraction level, physical level, cool. You find each other attractive. She's, high royalty. You are not. There's going to be some barriers there. Okay, that's an interesting conflict. And then they just progress the movie along, and they get to the point where like, oh, I'm a prince now, Prince Ali, and they force this relationship together that never comes full circle for me, and it really did feel forced and rushed on that point. And that's the main crux of the story. So if that doesn't work, then your whole movie falls apart. So that's with that. Other side characters, the actor playing Jafar was in a different movie. He was like, I can't even tell you how weird he was. And it wasn't like he was not being maniacal. He was. It was so over the top. I was like, fam, you were the only one acting this way. Even like villains in other movies do not act this over the top. You were on a whole different planet, pal. So I'm not saying the actor did a bad job given his direction, because Guy Ritchie told him to do that. He did it well, I guess, but it just didn't work for me in the movie. Oh, I guess speaking of Guy Ritchie, oh boy, why did he do this movie? I honestly want to know why he did this movie. Was he hurting for money? Because this, besides the few slow-mo scenes, which were really oddly placed, there was really no Guy Ritchie style to this movie, and It was, I don't know why he did it. There was no voice to this movie. It was just kind of like, all right, we got to hit this beat. We got to hit this beat. Oh, they're on the carpet now. Cue a whole new world. Okay, we're done with that. All right, moving on. It's just like, it just felt like a checklist. This was a checklist director type of movie. Like, we need to hit this. We need to hit that. We need to hit that. And it's like, and speaking of the slow-mo, not only was it oddly placed, there was one at the beginning of the movie that was in slow motion, right? But they were singing in real time. It was the oddest directing decision I've seen all year so far, because they're singing in real time, so their mouths are moving, I think in slow-mo, but the music is playing in real time, but they're singing along to the music. It's just, it was so odd. So, yeah, the Guy Ritchie thing, no thank you. I guess that's a perfect way to bleed into the script, because he also co-wrote it. Once again, checklist. Get this, get that, get that. The humor might have been the best part in some cases. Like some of the back and forth between the genie. Some of it was fine. The rest was intolerable. Joel, how do you pronounce his name? Billy Magnuson? Magnuson. I usually love that guy. What was he doing? Was he drunk on set and he just strolled on? He just started doing his own thing. It's not a big role, but it's just stuff like that irritated me. I was like, why was he doing that? Why did Guy Ritchie direct him like that? It's just odd choices, man. So yeah, the writing to me, there's really nothing special. It's literally beat per beat with the movie. And speaking of the animated movie and the music component, that's a perfect segue into this. I said this 2 years ago, and I'll say it again. Disney, if you are listening, stop over mixing your music. Beauty and the Beast had the same thing, where they would break out into song, and the music is so much louder than the actual lyrics, you cannot hear what they're saying. Just because people my age or even older are seeing your retellings does not mean that everyone has seen the original movie. So you just assume everyone's seen it so they can sing along and it's not really going to matter. But what about the people that haven't seen these movies? They're going to be like, I can't hear what they're saying. Now, I will say some of the songs are mixed way better in this than Beauty and the Beast as a whole. But there were still spots in this movie where I was like, you need to mix your music better with the dialogue of the song. So you can hear everything fluently, and it doesn't sound like garbled noise, and you can hear what they're talking about. And speaking of the songs not being mixed properly, they make no sense for the actual story. These characters bust out in the song for no reason, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, they kind of do that in the animated film. Yeah, I'll give you that, but it actually it made sense for the way that movie was structured, and everything felt a lot better in that than this one. At the very beginning, you have Will Smith's character just talking and just bust out in the song. Then we get into the next scene where we're introduced to Aladdin, then randomly bust in the song. The whole new world thing was so shocking in a way where, like, I knew the scene was coming up, and they get on the carpet and they start flying around, I think, to like 500 different countries in the span of like 2 minutes, which is funny. He's just like, we're gonna go see everything. They go to like 5 different locations and then come back all within like the span of 20 minutes. But they get on the carpet, they fly off. I'm just like, okay, they're having dialogue. Oh, no. It's like, what? Where'd that come from? So it's just, the songs don't make sense for the overall movie. I kind of wish they would have kept the songs out of it. That's just me. The new songs that they've added felt just as awkward as the original songs. It's like, why are they there? There's a song at the end with Naomi Scott, Jasmine's character, to where she is acting the part for sure, and probably if you want to talk in terms of acting and performance, probably gave the best performance in that little scene than everyone in the entire movie. But that song and that number and that performance makes no... I didn't feel anything. It was just like, it was just so random and so so jarring. I was like, why is this even here? There's nothing about this movie that clicked for me. The only reason I'm going to give it the grade I give it is because I can't knock the costume design. I cannot knock some of the production design because that definitely took some time and some effort and some work. And I think 80% of the time it worked for me, and that's a lot of hard work in a movie. Will Smith as a character and a performer wasn't too bad, and then Naomi Scott's voice was way better than everyone else's. Everything else about this movie, I hate. I don't want to watch again. You're 3 strikes from me, Disney. I'm done. I know, because I haven't heard Joel's thoughts about, like, we're going to give it roughly the same grade, but just hearing us talk about it just makes me dread Lion King, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore, Joel. I'm so done. So I'm going to give Aladdin a D+, and the plus is only because the costuming and some of the production design is extravagant. It's very lavish, very vibrant, a lot of fun, and a lot of effort put into that. Other than that, it is a D film for sure. I think I'm spent, Joel. I think these live action movies have really put kind of nail in the coffin for me. And this movie's going to make a lot of money, and there's going to probably be a sequel, and that makes me super sad. So D+ for me. Joel, what's your take on it?
Well, y'all will have to excuse Chase as he goes to have a stiff drink.
Seriously, I had to have 2 beers last night, and I was just like, when I know we're walking into a bad movie, like what you and I did for Hellboy, I was like, I have to have a couple drinks.
Right. I mean, I'm giving it the same grade. It's a D+ for me as well. I disagree with you about a couple of things, though. I wasn't as taken by Will Smith here, and I don't think it's due to his lack of effort. He certainly puts effort into it. The movie doesn't allow him to do anything that is all that interesting. I mean, he changes up a couple of the lyrics of the songs, but there was a point at which I memorized that entire movie, so I know those songs pretty well. We also listened to them a lot at work, and he's basically just working with the same lyrics from Alan Menken, who also composed the score, and the late Howard Ashman. This is one of his last movie for Disney, because he had passed away a couple of years before this movie came out. He had just already done work on the songs. So he's basically just working with the same lyrics that Robin Williams either had or devised. And it doesn't work because you aren't allowing an actor to have his own thing. So I don't think this movie quite reconciles Will Smith's contributions with respect to Robin Williams' contributions. I think that they're too beholden to what comes before it. So that's kind of the problem with the movie, is that it isn't imaginative. It's just spectacle, and that's it. And I like this even less than Beauty and the Beast. At least Beauty and the Beast was a lot prettier than this movie was visually. And I say that not thinking that this looks bad in any way, but I have a major problem with the cinematography in this movie. It's way too blunt and way too much focus on stark lighting. There's no atmosphere built by this movie. The dark scenes are just dark. The light scenes are just light. There's nothing interesting about the way this movie looks from a cinematography standpoint, and that kind of makes all of the effort put into the costumes and production design not completely useless, of course, because it's still there and it's still noticeable, but you don't get a whole sense of the scope or scale of the story.
Right, because ironically, like you said, everything is so vibrant and like in your face, but ironically, the flat and kind of stale lighting really just makes everything kind of washed out, and you're just like, why does it look like this?
The best shot is the first time we see Agrabah in whole, when it's a long shot of the whole city from Aladdin's vantage point at the place he has kind of called his home, which is at the top of a housing structure. And I think that really works. That shot does, but yeah, once you get up close, I think that it's too starkly lit to really make an impact. With the performances, I think that Naomi Scott works, and that's about it. I think that Masood is basically just He's likable, but his performance reminded me sort of Orlando Bloom's in Pirates of the Caribbean. Likable piece of cardboard is how I described him in my review. I didn't get anything from him other than he's occupying the screen. That's about it. Marwan Kanzari, who plays Jafar here, is baffling. You're so right when you said that he's in a different movie, because there's nothing that he's doing that is like Jonathan Freeman's vocal performance in the original film, which was bass. He had a bass voice. It was deep. It was slightly British. It was really good, and it was very dryly funny too. Whenever he picked that up, here he just adopts a reedy voice and then is dull from that point onward.
He sounds like me. He sounds like me if I was trying to be threatening. I'm just like, this isn't threatening at all.
Yeah. If you were trying to put on this really weird, like, mustachioed villain British voice, that's basically it. And it just doesn't work. And also the fact that he has this political aspiration, it makes it even more boring than the original character, who, wasn't super active as a villain, but he was at least kind of almost pointlessly evil, in a way that I think that placing some sort of specific vision on this new version of the character kind of undermines his villainy. He just comes across as a schemer. He doesn't come across as a villain anymore. And it also removes the personality from his bird Iago. He just kind of appears in the background, says a few things. He's voiced by Alan Tudyk, who's a good voice for this, but give him what Gilbert Gottfried did. Give him that sort of sardonic sense of humor. You think about the wild energy. You think about the thing where Jafar almost kind of slams him in a door in the original movie, and then he comes out and he gets on his shoulder and he pants and he tries to meet breath, and then he goes silent and he's like, "So, I hear it went well." You think about that scene is so funny because of how Gilbert Gottfried did it. And here he's just a sidekick. He just exists in the scene. He exists basically to become a big special effects creation at the end of the movie in the big conflict. The action scenes are pitiful, especially when it comes to the final conflict. There's no sense of geography or timing. They're some of the least interesting action scenes I've seen. The music is way overproduced. I did like Jasmine's new number. We disagree on that, and that's one of the few things. I think that it's not random or intruding on anything, because the new vision for this character is a little bit more interesting than what came before it. She has political aspirations of her own, but she's also fighting against a society that doesn't allow her to speak. It's all about her as the woman remaining quiet. So that song reclaims some of her voice, which I thought was really neat. And it's also written by Benj Pasek and Justin Paul. Now, are the lyrics kind of generic? Sure. They don't really fit the other songs.
And I think, like, you make a great point.
Macon and Ashman are better songwriters, I think. But
you make a great point. I just think at that point, when the movie's almost done, and I'm just so exhausted watching it, when that number came on, I just didn't care anymore. Because everything that came before, I was like, this doesn't, like, get the songs out of here. And, like, I realized that if you've already committed to the musical numbers, you got to keep throwing them in there and stuff. So when that point actually came, I can acknowledge that the look in her eyes and her actual conviction of that scene was good. It's just I didn't care for the song at that point because I was so drawn out from the previous songs that it still felt random to me because I was done with the whole musical component.
It's interesting because we're going to see next year with Mulan how I think it's next year.
Yes.
How the sort of experiment of remaking a Disney musical as not a musical is going to happen, because we've been told, we know now that one's not going to be a musical telling of Mulan. The songs in that movie were the original Mulan weren't super important to the story. So I think that could work. I would be interested in seeing an Aladdin with this kind of energy, but without the songs, because
Same.
I know that the original is, a family classic, and the story's kind of dark, but treat kids with respect. They're a little smarter than you think. And I think that that telling a story like this without the music might be an interesting thing, and maybe that's what Disney needs to start doing. I don't know if The Lion King is obviously going to be a musical take. That's been confirmed. Mulan is not, and I'm just interested to see where they go from here with something like this being kind of in their history, whether or not they learn any lessons from this. They're probably not, because it's going to make money and they're going to think that it worked, because that's how that happens. But it's not good, and it just. And then you get to the genie, and I kind of saved him for last before wrapping this up, because I think that the movie's entire problem lies in, or at least it can be found in how they treat the genie. The look of the genie here is honestly kind of off-putting, because in the original movie you had a drawing, essentially. There was a cartoonishness that was allowed. The character was unpredictable, not just because Robin Williams played him as unpredictable and likely ad-libbed some of his dialogue, but because of the fact that it was a cartoon character, and it was a being who's sort of a state of being. He's not really a conscious being of his own. The whole point is that he has to be set free to become that. Until then, he's essentially just a state of existential being. And so because of that, and because of the fact that he was animated in the original movie with 2D animation, the movie was allowed to let him loose on the scenery as well. So he was able to introduce elements in the background and foreground of the movie, cause sort of, I guess, hallucinations or manipulate reality in a way that this movie, whenever it does it, you just are constantly, reminded of the fact that he's a CG creation that's grounded enough because he's interacting with human characters, that all the magic of the character is just lost in that kind of translation. And yeah, it's just indicative of the problem with the movie, which is that it's not giving any sort of time or effort to focus on the imagination or heart of the story. It just wants to, wow you with a bunch of spectacle, and that's it. And it just becomes empty, and, it's not as bad as Alice in Wonderland. That's my least favorite. It's the first one, and that's still my least favorite of this sort of movement to either remake old Disney classics or kind of make them reimaginings, or focusing on other characters like Maleficent did. It's not as bad, but I would say that it's probably in second place, maybe tied with Alice Through the Looking Glass as kind of another pretty bad one. And yeah, it just is a waste of time.
Well,
it's just a waste of time.
And I want to say two things, because that actually perfectly bleeds into this. It's a waste of time, and if you guys are listening and you have kids and you were thinking about taking them to see this, I, being an almost 30-year-old man, I rarely get antsy and start moving around in my seat because I'm like bored or just not feeling anymore. I can tell you right now, even though my audience was enjoying it, there was a lot of rustling around the theater, and I was moving around my seat a lot. For a 2-hour runtime, it is long, drawn out, and it really does feel boring, and that weight of the time really sits on you, and not in a pleasant way. And then just real quick, Joel mentioned the VFX work. I forgot to bring this up. It's whatever. A couple shots work for me, but overall it's just it's a very apparent green screen type of world building, and I'm not a fan of that. Yeah,
it looks overproduced. It really does. It's again with that lighting. I think reveals some of the seams in the production. Honestly, I think that they probably threw too much money at it and didn't do enough with that money. Honestly, it just doesn't look very good. All right, folks. So we're saying definitely see Aladdin. It's the best film of all time. I'm kidding. All right.
This might have been the worst mistake we've made as a choice for a movie so far.
I don't know. Hellboy was pretty bad. But
Hellboy was bad, but it gave us good numbers on the download, so I'm okay with it.
That's true. We'll see how that goes this time. All right, so guys, I'm fast tracking this project just a little bit, but we're gonna go back into our lists of the best movies of the years of the decade, and now we're gonna talk about the best films of 2011. We have a little time this week, and I'm gonna basically I actually don't know if Chase has an entire top 10, but I do, and I'm gonna kind of we're gonna do like we did last time. I'm gonna go through my 10 through 6 pretty fast, and then spend a little more time on my number 5. Chase is gonna do the same, and then we'll move through, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, etc. You know how this goes by now. All right, so 2011. I just have to say, we have a lot of conversations about what the best film year of the decade is. And for me, it is this year. It is 2011 because of the fact that literally 5 of these movies would get an A+ for me, and you all know how stingy I am with that rating. It's a great year. One of these movies was because of Chase. He let me borrow it, and I also have bought the movie, so I own it. And
Joel, just real quick in case there are new listeners out there, could you explain to the people why we are doing these kind of top lists leading into the end of the decade?
Yeah, so of course the end of the decade, for all of you who are following the correct way to do math on this, ends later this year. No, it does not end with 2020 because 2020 is not in the 2010s. People, I've been hearing a lot of people say that. It is from 2010 to 2009, which, if you count them all up, is 10 years from 2009. So, we just realized, okay, so Chase started this podcast about 4 years into it. Even if I had not joined the show, I think that a natural expectation for listeners would have been for Chase to do his list. I don't know if he would have done that. We can't know alternate realities, but I think that it was a natural expectation, and so now that point in time is coming closer and closer, we've got to start talking about the movies that you guys don't know how we feel about, that we haven't really had a chance to talk about because we constantly live in the moment. So for the past few months, we've been going through our lists of the best films of several years before now, and now we're up to the second to last, which is 2011. And we're going backwards. So 2010 is next, which we'll do here in a few weeks. So, but for now, 2011, great year, constant greatness, really, especially in the summer months. I thought was a really good summer and spring, even stronger, weirdly enough, than the fall, I thought. But a lot of great work came out this particular year. And I think it's reflected in my list. It's kind of a list that goes all over the place. But I'm going to start with my number 10. I don't know if everybody remembers it, but The Artist was the Best Picture winner of the year, 2011. Of course, winning in 2012. And it's my number 10. I love this movie. I think that it's maybe not the movie I would have chosen. Would have voted for if I was on the in the Academy. There would have been a couple of others that make this list that I would have put above it, but I think it's a worthy Best Picture winner. People like to say that this movie is a typical Best Picture winner for the Academy, and to that I say, yeah, I'm just pointing at all the silent French musicals French-produced musicals that won Best Picture. Ha ha ha! Get it? Because none of them have ever done that. It's not a typical Best Picture winner at all. Certainly, it's crowd pleasing, but that's because it's still a slight romantic comedy that just uses a format, which is silent cinema, that hadn't been used sincerely in a long time. There'd been a couple of things. Silent Movie was a silent parody of silent movies, but that was a parody, and it wasn't a sincere use. So black and white wasn't something that was very common either, and this was photographed in black and white. But I love what this movie has to say about kind of the end of an era. The irony surrounding this movie is the fact that it's a silent movie about the end of the silent era. It's the advent of sound, which is something that the movie has to convey through silent film technique. And I think that the technique here from director Michel Hazanavicius is fantastic. So I love this movie. I know a lot of people find it kind of a soft lob, but it's fantastic. Number 9 is a real stunner that I think that people need to see this more than they have, and it's Source Code from director Duncan Jones. It's still his best movie in my opinion, and it is follows Jake Gyllenhaal, who finds himself in a loop. Speaking of looped movies, this is another one. He finds himself on a train as it's being attacked. There's another level of reality here, though, in the fact that he is simply a consciousness in the past. Except that there's also a third level of reality, and it's absolutely devastating and haunting. This is the kind of movie that you see, and then it's under your skin for the rest of the week or so after you've seen it. I haven't seen it since the theaters. I really do need to watch it again. I think it recently came out on 4K. I need to buy that. But it's a fantastic movie with a fantastic sense of its own premise. This is the example of a movie using a time loop premise to its advantage and doing something really interesting with it, and haunting. Number 8 is Moneyball, which I really think is one of the best screenplays of that year. The fact that they were able to take a nonfiction book and turn it into this is an achievement. It's written by Steve Zalian and Aaron Sorkin, and it's directed by Bennett Miller, one of the most interesting American filmmakers who doesn't make a lot of movies all the time. His last one was Foxcatcher, which was about 5 years ago. And it's the story of Billy Beane, who was once upon a time playing for the Oakland A's, and he recruits a mostly fictionalized character played by Jonah Hill, who has a mathematical system of choosing the best players in baseball. Rather than the heavy hitters, you choose the ones who have the most hits. And I'm not a baseball guy. I'm not a sports guy in general, but this is kind of a baseball movie for people who don't like them. It's a baseball movie about how math wins out, and I think that's really interesting. It's also an interesting character study of a guy who no longer romanticizes the sport. He's become pretty de-romanticized from it a long time ago, and Pitt's performance is fantastic. It's not the only time he'll show up on this list, Brad Pitt. He had a good year this year. My number 7 is The End of an Era. It's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I think that basically this movie is one gigantic action scene. There's a couple of smaller ones here too, but it's the final conflict between Harry Potter and his nemesis Lord Voldemort, and all of the secrets that are revealed, the deaths that occur, the sacrifices that are made. All of it comes to a head here. It's fantastic, and it makes for a good second half of a movie, really, because that's what it is. Or I guess last third of a movie, really, because it only takes on about 13 chapters of the book. My number 6 is a movie called Beginners. This one comes from director Mike Mills, who later kind of disappointed me with 20th Century Women, but this one was pretty fantastic. It starred Ewan McGregor and Christopher Plummer as a son and his father. The father has just come out at the age of 75. Meanwhile, the son has to kind of deal with the loss of his mother. I'm sorry, the loss of his father, because it takes place in two timelines. The present, when he's kind of met a woman played by Melanie Laurent from Inglourious Bastards, and in the past, when he's dealing with his father's coming out and the introduction to the father's younger boyfriend, played by Goran Visnik. So, fantastic movie, really a very quiet drama, and surprisingly funny because of Plummer's transformative performance. He's excellent here. It's the best performance, I think, possibly of that entire year, maybe with the exception of one other one. So that's my 10 through 6. I'm actually going to go ahead and hand it over to Chase to give his 10 through 6 before we get into our top 5s. So what are some of the movies that you love from this year?
Right, and so just quick honorable mentions, ones that did not make it, but I want to give a shout-out to. Definitely a great year for blockbusters, I can tell you that much. Midnight in Paris is one of them. Still enjoy that to this day, even with the person behind the camera. Bridesmaids, great cultural film. Nominated for a couple of Oscars. Really funny movie. And the big ones, blockbuster-wise. Two of them actually dropped this year, but I'm going to go with Captain America: The First Avenger. Thor also dropped that year. The birth of the MCU as we know it. I still like The First Avengers, sue me. X-Men First Class is really great. And then I'm going to go with one of Joel's picks, Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2. The Deathly Hallows movies were some of the best movie experiences I've ever had. I got to go to midnight shows back when midnight was still a thing, and really, really fun time. Okay. So my 10 through 6, just real quick. Number 10 is a movie that I saw by myself at 11 p.m. at night. I worked at the theater at the time, so I saw a lot of these movies for free. And this one I was by myself in the theater, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. And that would be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Fincher version. I actually think this is one of those rare cases where, because I've seen the original, I actually like Fincher's version more than the original. Not to take away from Noomi Rapace and the cast and crew of the original, but I really like what Rooney Mara did, Daniel Craig, and Fincher, what he brought to the old kind of neo-noir look that he always has, and just makes it really gritty, dark, and disturbing. A really compelling revenge tale that I quite enjoy. I know a lot of people don't really care for it, but it's a movie that has stuck with me, and it's a shame because I hated the sequel. So that exists out there. So number 9 is Hugo, Martin Scorsese, first kind of family-oriented film, and I was introduced to Asa Butterfield in this one. This one, tells the story of Hugo, played by Butterfield. And it takes place during the silent film era, and takes place in Paris. And Hugo is an orphan, and he kind of is kind of wrapped up in a mystery involving like his late father. And so it's a really nice family film. It's a visual spectacle that has a lot of oomph behind it because you have Scorsese behind the camera with his really kind of fluid and inventive cinematography that he always does. I love Butterfield in the role. Chloe Grace Moretz is also in it. Ben Kingsley, Christopher Lee, Sacha Baron Cohen, Ray Winstone, Emily Mortimer. It's a really great cast, and it's just a really nice family film that really had some really great 3D. 3D is not really anything I like to recommend on the show, but in the wake of like Avatar in 2009, for like a good 5 years after that, it was just 3D was on the rage, and so I was a little skeptical on Hugo, but I thought the 3D worked pretty well and it was one of the better ones. So all in all, a really great kind of family film package. My number 8 is actually Joel's number 8 is Moneyball. What he said, I will just echo. One of the best scripts of that year for sure. So glad that Sorkin came back after doing The Social Network, and I'm sure we'll talk about that movie later on. But yeah, Sorkin and, of course, Bennett Miller directing. I love Moneyball. I still think Foxcatcher is the best thing he's done so far. But, yeah, Moneyball is still a great, intriguing film about baseball and the kind of financial side of it. And who would have thought that would have been entertaining? Just like who would have thought the movie about Facebook would be entertaining. It's just that's how Sorkin works. He always takes kind of real-life subjects, people, stories, and turns them into such a dialogue-driven, entertaining way that you are just drawn in by it. And, of course, with the performance of Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill, who got his first Oscar nomination from this movie, it's just, yeah, really great cast. And, of course, the late Philip Seymour Hoffman's also in this, and Robin Wright. It's just a really great movie about baseball and the finances behind it, and you would not think that would be interesting, but Joel's correct. Even if you were not a baseball fan, I think you'll like it just because of the intrigue behind the scenes, peeling back the curtain of how baseball kind of functions a little bit. The stuff that you don't see. That's what's intriguing about it. My number 7 is, what do I have here? Hold on. Lost my notes, folks. Is Take Shelter. You have Michael Shannon, Jessica Chastain, and this one tells the story of a couple who is not both of them. Michael Shannon's character, he's plagued by a bunch of apocalyptic visions, and so he's like, I got to build this shelter. The apocalypse is coming, and so it's a really just kind of deep family drama. It has nothing to do with like apocalypses or even tornadoes or like storms or whatever. It's about this man who is having these visions and is so compelled by them that he has to develop this shelter. So when it does come, he can protect him and his family. He slowly dives into, paranoia. It's just, that was one of my first introductions to like Michael Shannon at like his most Michael Shannon-y-ist. and so that's where I was like, oh wow, this guy is something special. It's directed by Jeff Nichols, who also brought us Mud, a couple or a year later with McConaughey and Ty Sheridan. So this is a director that just makes really great kind of intimate stories, and Take Shelter is just one of them. But it's more of a drama. It's not really a horror film or a thriller. It's about this man diving into deep paranoia, and you don't really know if he's running from an actual storm. Maybe it's actually real, or if he's running from something that he's fearing within himself or his wife, played by Jessica Chastain. It's just, there's a lot of complexity into it, and it's something that I still have not shaken off me. That ending is one of those endings that sticks with you, and you're like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of think pieces about that ending, in a good way. Because I know think pieces get a bad rap, but if it's an actual like discussion piece on like film analogy and stuff, that is one of those films you want to dive into. And number 6, before we get into the meaty top 5, is Crazy Stupid Love. I love this movie. I've seen it a million times. The first time that I saw it, it did shock me with the kind of story twist at the end with maybe certain characters being connected somehow. That actually shocked me because I did not expect it. I was like, all right, this is a really well-written movie. It's written by Dan Fogelman, who has brought us shows like This Is Us. He also was one of the writers of Tangled. There you go. There's your little fun fact. And he also wrote Life Itself, one of the worst movies of last year. But hey, everyone's got a bad day at the office. A really...
or bad several months.
He's had some clunkers, but I will give him credit where credit is due. And this is also directed by the pairing that brought us Bad Santa and I Love You, Philip Morris. It's such a weird mix of people, but this one tells the story of Steve Carell's character. He's like a middle-aged man. He's going through some life changes, maybe with his wife, played by Julianne Moore, and he wants to get back on the dating scene. And Ryan Gosling, meets up with him in a bar, and he's kind of like a womanizer and kind of teaches him how to impress women. And of course, Emma Stone's in this, and it's a really well written romantic comedy. It's funny, got a lot of heart to it, and the performances and the way these characters interact with each other is the special thing about it. And I do think it is a fresh perspective on this genre that does seem tiresome occasionally. So I really like Crazy Stupid Love. A very good movie indeed. So Joel, let's do it, man. Top 5.
Yeah. So quick comments. I am one of the people that does not like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I haven't liked any of those movies though, so that shouldn't be a surprise. I was not expecting Crazy Stupid Love on your list. I like that. I like that inclusion. It's a delightful little movie. I really had fun with that. Somehow Hugo's not on this list. I love that movie, and I'm glad we agree about Moneyball. So my number 5 actually rhymes with the number 5. My number 5 is Drive. So I love Drive. It's sleek and it's cool, and it's really kind of sexy style thriller. This is the one about Ryan Johnson as a stunt driver who gets caught up in the mob.
Wait, who's Ryan Johnson?
Ryan Gosling. My goodness,
I was like,
I mentioned Ryan Johnson earlier. I think his name is still in my brain.
I was like, oh wow, Ryan Johnson was in this.
His acting debut. No, but yeah, I love this movie. It's so cool and sleek, and the cinematography by Newton Thomas Sigel just is is just bliss, and that's the movie. That's the word that usually accompanies descriptions of this movie. Is people find it blissful, and it really is. It's everything that I love about pure cinema, all wrapped up into a package. And yes, if you think that sounds like it should be my number one or something a little bit higher than this, honestly, my numbers 2 through 5 could be switched around. My number one is solidly my number one, but my numbers 2 through 5, I could switch them around. This could be number 2. Right now, it's number 5. But I love every twist and turn of this movie. It kind of occupies the same ruthless thriller space as something like No Country for Old Men. Very different in approach, but just very similar in the approach to violence. Although this is very uncharacteristic of its director, Nicholas Winding Refn. This is a character who really wants to stay away from violence. And as Josh Larson put it on Film Spotting, because I'm about to use his words pretty much, all of his other characters have been all about violence. Bronson, you think about Bronson, Valhalla Rising, Only God Forgives, to some degree. I don't think Neon Demon really fits into that conversation, but certainly it was also quite violent. He has a thing about violence, and here when it comes, it's severe, and but it's also such a human film. There's a lot here that is very, very humanistic and surprisingly emotional, especially in the context of this guy's filmmaking, which is usually at least slightly detached from kind of human treatments of characters. You think about Only God Forgives is the most alienating experience. I loved it, but it's the most alienating experience of watching humans. It's completely the opposite of something like this, very esoteric in comparison. Here, there's a human story being told in the midst of all of this kind of artful version of the Fast and the Furious franchise that Winding Refn's going for. The stunt driving is just superbly mounted. There's a lot of really great chases here. There's one that opens the movie that, obviously Baby Driver kind of took off from that. And, anyway, it's fantastic, and I love it. So that's my number 5. I assume, are we going to be talking about this one a little bit later for you?
I'm going to take a hard pass on it.
Yeah.
I think that was a given. So my number 5, there were 2 films that I saw. Oh, man. I want to say either the same day or within like 2 days of each other. This is before I lived in Dallas, and the Angelica Film Center here in Dallas. And, of course, Joel lives near another one in Plano. They play a lot of indie films, a lot of art house films that typically like AMC's and Cinemarks won't pick up, which I always appreciate. I have a place I can go to for that. And so before I actually lived in Dallas, I was going to school in Dallas, and I was aware of the Angelica, and so I decided to make a trip out here. I actually probably saw them in the same day. I can't remember, but I do remember seeing them in the same weekend. One of them I was so blown away by, because this was my first experience with this director. And until I actually see the one that Joel has been recommending for ages, it is the best thing I've seen from him. It is Lars von Trier's Melancholia. It's a fascinating movie because it is a beautiful movie. It is a well-acted movie. But my God, is it hard to watch sometimes. It plays a lot into the themes of depression, which is not anything new for von Trier. This typically what he pushes is one of his main themes and characteristics of characters. This one stars Kirsten Dunst. She is the sister to Charlotte Gainsbourg, and they go to this mansion where her sister is getting married. She is getting married, and she's having second thoughts about her wedding, and she is a character who has said in the film that she's been diagnosed with depression. And so it's really kind of hard for her to be happy. Alexander Skarsgård is in this. Kiefer Sutherland. And this one just kind of follows Kirsten Dunst's character as she's slowly starting to realize that maybe she doesn't want to get married. And in the background of all of this, there is a planet that is going to collide with Earth. And so it kind of like, hyping up her depression even more. She's just like, well, what's the point? Like, we're all going to die, really soon. And so it's the imminent threat of not only knowing that this planet is going to collide with Earth, but it's also the kind of fear, the imminent fear that she has with her, like, and her family colliding and kind of clashing and stuff. It's just, it's a pretty great allegory. I know a lot of people don't like Von Trier. A lot of people use the P word. Same with Refn, ironically. And so,
yeah.
The pretentious. So until I see Breaking the Waves, the one that Joel always recommends and stuff, this is the best thing I've seen from him. I've seen Antichrist. Didn't really care for that one. I've seen both volumes of Nymphomaniac. I mean, I'm neither here nor there on the ending, but I still think the overall journey is pretty powerful. But this is on a whole nother level. It is a very bleak movie. Spoiler alert, it does not end well. The planet does collide, and it just ends. And you sit there, and you kind of like just play it out in your head, and you're like, what did I just watch? Why did Von Trier want to make this movie? And for someone that is very open about his depression, I think this was like very cathartic for him to do something as bleak and pessimistic as this, because this is how he views the world. Everything is doom and gloom, and I felt that. I felt that in the filmmaking, and this was before I even knew who Von Trier was. This is even before I knew that he has depression. I felt that in the filmmaking. It was very passionate filmmaking, but it was bleak and it was a downer. But in a weird way, I felt sad at the end, but I also felt like uplifted, because I was like, well, if this is going to happen in the future where we're all just going to die and the planet's going to explode, I'm just going to enjoy my time here and enjoy it with friends and family and just live it to the fullest. So in a weird way, it makes you feel like you should just live your life to the fullest type of. I don't know. It's a very weird experience for sure. Gorgeously shot. If you watch any Von Trier movie, a lot of frames in his movie could be stills for paintings. They are that gorgeous. So looks great. It could be slow to some people. It takes place all in this mansion, and it could be drawn out for some people. I didn't feel that way. I just thought the powerful performance from Dunst was so good that I was glued to the screen every single second, and it's the best I've ever seen her. And you got to keep in mind, the only kind of like acting knowledge I had from her was like Spider-Man and like a couple other things. I've never seen her on this level, and you got to keep in mind, this was 8 years ago, so I'm starting to see her in more and better stuff now, but that was like A-class acting that I've seen from her at that point, and she was so good, and everyone was just on point. It's, like I said, it's a very depressing movie, but I think in a very odd way, you feel kind of uplifted at the end, and it's just a beautifully made film, even if it is 2 hours of this character with depression and feeling bleak and gloom all the time. It's still pretty powerful. So Melancholia is my number 5.
I need to rewatch that. I saw it back in 2012, I think. I rented it back when I was. It might have been Netflix, but it was probably Blockbuster Online, because I was a member of that for a little bit. I need to rewatch it. I did feel like there was a lot of bloat in the wedding segment. The first part of the movie. And that's
fair, because the movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I'm not saying it's a fast movie by any means. It is a very slow. It's probably the slowest movie he's ever done.
It's fascinating though, because it's this character who is so depressed, and again, I'm kind of using the words of the people from Film Spotting, but so depressed that she doesn't care that the world's going to end, which is really interesting to consider that. And yeah, I mean, you gave it away, but really, if people know that Lars von Trier is going to make a movie about a planet colliding with Earth, the planet's going to collide with Earth. He's not going to spare his characters. Yeah, so it's certainly a fascinating movie. I love Dunst. I like Gainsbourg even more. I'm weird that way.
She's always great in von Trier movies.
Yeah, and The only one I've seen otherwise is Breaking the Waves. I need to see more of his work, but Breaking the Waves is amazing. So certainly see that. I had an immediate reaction to that one, whereas this one puzzled me for a while. So I do need to see it again. My number 4 is also pretty bleak. It is the one that you introduced me to, and that is Shame from director Steve McQueen. This is an NC-17 movie, so it didn't get a lot of advertising, but it is the story of Brandon, who is sort of a New York executive of some sort. He has kind of been pinpointed at his work for downloading a lot of pornography that has basically, crashed all the computers in the building, or at least introduced some sort of virus in them. That's the degree to which he is a sex addict, and he is truly within the throes of this addiction. Suddenly, his younger sister comes back, and their shared history of potential abuse kind of comes back to haunt them, although it's never really stated outright. This is a fascinating movie about addiction, and it connected with me for some personal reasons I won't get into, but it's brilliantly acted, and particularly from Fassbender. McQueen, this was his second feature following Hunger back in 2008 or 9, depending on when it actually came out in the U.S. And second one to star, Michael Fassbender. He's a fan of Fassbender. And this is also another movie following Drive that co-stars Carey Mulligan. In Drive, she plays the love interest. In Shame, she plays the sister. And it's a interesting dynamic between the two characters as we kind of come to understand their pasts. There's famously a lot of really, really extended shots here, particularly one of Brandon jogging that I keep using other people's words, but Chris Tapley of formerly InContention.com, now writes for Variety. Back when he did his own top 10, and this I think was in actually the same spot on his list back in 2011, it might have been number 5. He said something that I'm gonna invoke here, which is that the shot of him jogging goes on, and then it goes on too long, and then it keeps going, and then it settles. And that's the kind of filmmaking that McQueen's working with here. He's not at all interested in you being comfortable with the length of the shots that he's going to use in his movies. He's all about patience with these characters, sitting with potentially, unsympathetic characters, and just kind of stewing in this kind of moral murk, as the story goes on. And it's a fascinating study. It's explicit. It doesn't hold back, hence the rating. But it's never gratuitous either. There's nothing here in the scenes of sexual experiences that seems like it's going way over the top. So certainly worth checking out. And I thank you for introducing me, for getting me to watch it. Because it's
not
fantastic.
Yeah, it's not an easy watch. And so I let him know that. I was like, Joel, prepare yourself. Like, it's McQueen first of all, so like Joel's used to McQueen's filmmaking, so it's a wild movie. But once again, I'll take a pass.
Right, I figured that you would.
Right. See, you've already constructed my list in your head. So my number 4, I know some people talk about it, but I want to shed light on it. It is one of the best animated films I have seen from an animation standpoint in my life. And I'm talking just from pure detail and texture, environment, characters. It is stunning. And the fact that Pixar did not make this, or any other like bigger studio.
I was about to freak out.
Right.
About to freak out. Yeah.
It's not a Disney film. It is, a film that came out of nowhere. But I remember watching it in theaters, and it was such a fun family film, but also had like the maturity of stuff that parents could enjoy, and doesn't treat kids like they're idiots. while also still being colorful and cute, given the fact that it is with animals. So my number 4 is Rango. Definitely one of my favorite Johnny Depp performances. I know it's weird to say, but he absolutely nails it as this kind of weirdo chameleon that's just walking around the desert. And I love the way he walks. I love the way he just kind of moves throughout the scenes, and his eyes are going in like a million different directions. And having that with the kind of the deep-ish voice of Johnny Depp, I don't know, it just works for me. But this one tells the story of a chameleon who accidentally winds up in the town of Dirt, and it is a lawless outpost in the Wild West in desperate need of a new sheriff. And so, obviously, he's well-liked, and so they kind of push him up the ranks of being a sheriff. Obviously, people are not going to like that, and they try to refute that. So, if you're thinking to yourself, this sounds like a typical old Western movie that's animated with animals, you're right. I mean, there's really nothing like new to the story, but it's more about how it's executed in the animation, in the voice acting, and just the kind of like just flow of the movie. Just everything kind of hits, even though the story is not anything we haven't seen before in the Western genre. It's a Western for kids, but it treats itself like a very mature movie, and I really appreciate that. I had a lot of fun with it, and I haven't seen it in a long time, but when I saw it, I was like, who made this movie? Because the actual the detail of the characters and the environments are so photorealistic, it just kind of blows your mind. And this was before, because the first time I noticed it with like a Pixar with like the photorealistic environment was the Good Dinosaur, even though the dinosaurs looked like gummies. That was the first time I noticed that, animation's getting to a point now where it's looking photorealistic. It's kind of scary. I first noticed it back in 2011 when I saw Rango. I was like, this is incredible. Even down to like the finite details of the chameleon and the scales and the skin and the crevices. It's just, it looked so good. So, yeah, it's one of those family films that not a lot of people talk about, but definitely left an impact on me because of the style and the actual art and filmmaking of the film. And it's just a pleasant watch. So, Rango is my number 4.
I like this one a lot. I'm a big Gore Verbinski fan, as everybody knows. I'm a big fan of his Pirates of the Caribbean movies as well as The Lone Ranger. This one's not on my list, but it's a fantastic piece of work. I think the Western aspect is a little more important. It's a love letter to them,
right?
in a certain
I'm not
way.
saying it doesn't
and
serve
also,
it. I'm just saying that if you're expecting like something offbeat and new, it's like it plays out like a typical Western, but it does it in, like you said, like a love letter fashion that you just don't care because everything else about it is really well done. Like you can tell there's a lot of passion behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot of flourishes of creativity too with that. It also evokes the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas kind of thing, which is kind of ironic considering it's Johnny Depp in the role of Rango. Having played Hunter S. Robinson before, there's a stretch here where that directly comes in. It's also unexpectedly touching. There's a lot of stuff that happens at the end of this movie that has an impact, and I like that. It's a really good one. So my number 3, I think that with my top 3, I'm getting into an area of sort of, for Chase at least, unknown territory, because I'm pretty sure he has not seen these movies. So I will certainly make him see them, and he has no choice in the matter. So my number 3 is the most ambitious film of all of 2011 because it pairs the inner workings of a Texas family in the 50s with the beginning of the world, and that is Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life, which is semi-autobiographical, and it's also extremely philosophical. Malick is working with just about every philosophical idea ever devised, just about, except for maybe even death, because there's a death here of a brother that hangs over the family after it happens. But the family is played by Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain as the father. The kids are played by Hunter McCracken and I believe Ty Sheridan as well. And then you have Sean Penn playing McCracken's the son played by McCracken at an older age. It's a really good cast, of course, as par for the course with Malik. He's kind of misstepped since with some of his movies, but this is not a misstep. This is one of the most comprehensively philosophical experiences I've ever had in a movie theater with somebody just simply working out a lot of the ideas that he's had throughout his life, exploring his own past in a way that is sometimes deeply personal, sometimes inexplicable, like a clown in an attic, for instance. We see one here, and it's for no particular reason than it was on his mind, and so he staged it. And that's how Malik works, at least these days. He worked in a far more traditional manner before that, with films like The New World, which was sort of a Pocahontas story from the point of view of John Smith, and then the Thin Red Line was a war story in Malik terms, which meant it was a little bit more ponderous, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but a little bit more ponderous than some other war stories. And a film like Days of Heaven. I haven't seen Badlands. That's the one that I do need to see. It's his first film. But I've seen every other one, and this is one of his best. It's truly beautiful stuff. It kind of makes a shift in the last bit toward directly confronting death in a way that is extremely interpretive and vague, that kind of turned people off. And I think that it was around that time that people kind of started wondering whether or not he was really all that. But I stayed with it. I think it's overwhelmingly beautiful, and particularly the cinematography by Emmanuel Lubezki, the editing by like a team of 5 people, I think, the score by Alexandre Desplat. It's a beautiful piece of filmmaking front to back, and a lot less frustrating than Song to Song, which we saw together, and I know you didn't like it all. I liked it a little more than you, but this is pretty close to a masterpiece, if not one. And yeah, again, somehow only my number 3, but we're about to get into 2 all-timers. So yeah. I know that you haven't seen it. Did I interest you?
I mean, I definitely want to see it because, I hear a lot of people like yourself or like other film critics I respect, they talk about it all the time and how it is ambitious. It's bold storytelling. And it's got one of our hometown boys, Ty Sheridan. That was his that was his first movie.
That was his first role, yeah.
First role. And he is from Texas, and, Tree of Life was shot in Texas, so it makes perfect sense why he was casted because he was in the area. But, now he's off doing bigger and better things, and still one of my favorite highlights is meeting him. I want to see it, definitely for sure. One of these days I will.
Again, he has no choice, so he will be seeing it. I will be forcing him.
He will tie me down jigsaw style, and I'm gonna be like, Joel, no, and then I will just kick his little doll body that he's gonna tricycle around, and then the movie's done with. That's how our Saw movie's gonna go. My number 3, as you guys can tell, there's gonna be a pattern here of dark and disturbing, and even depressing movies on my list. My number 3 was not on my list back in the day, but I watched it later on in life, and I have a profound respect for it because it is an actor's movie, a performance-driven movie, and it just showcases how some people who are in this industry, why they're in this industry, and how good they are. And that would be We Need to Talk About Kevin. My first Lynn Ramsey movie. I actually watched this movie due to the controversy of Jane Got a Gun. Ironically enough, the controversy of her on set, leaving and stuff, I was like, all right, let me see what this director's all about. I watched this movie, I was blown away. And side note, I said this last year, and I'll say it again. You Were Never Really Here. Fantastic film. Once again, Lynn Ramsey taking dark, disturbing subject matter and really turning it into an actor's movie. Joaquin Phoenix is phenomenal in that. And the same goes with this movie. You have Tilda Swinton, Ezra Miller as Kevin, the disturbed boy. He kind of grows up, and his mom senses there's something wrong with him. But, of course, the mother's love is always stronger than anything else. And so she's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with my boy. But he starts to becoming more and more disturbed and having these kind of like serial killer tendencies. And she still denies it. And, John C. Reilly is the one that's kind of noticing and like, are we going to do anything about this? He's like, nah. And so they have conflict, and he's really great in the role. But this is mainly about Ezra Miller and his transformative performance. Because my first introduction to him was actually The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I was blown away by that performance because I was like, oh, cool. He plays a really great, like, best friend side character. He really brought a lot of energy to that movie. And of course, he was Flash. But this is where a lot of people start to notice him. And I'm ashamed that I didn't, watch this sooner, but I'm glad I did. It's a very hard watch. It is very disturbing to see this kid grow up to where he eventually ends up at the end of the movie. It's a hard watch for sure, but it is an actor's movie. It's a slow burn. You ignite that match, and as soon as it gets down to the end of the stick, the climax hits the movie, and you just kind of sit there stunned, and you're like, wow, this was a really fascinating movie. And it's not going to be for everybody. Most of these movies on this list, on my list and Joel's list, it's not going to be for everybody because some of them are hard to sit through if you're not into the more disturbing and more kind of depressing type of movies. That's what this year was all about. I don't know if it was because in 2012 people were still banking on the whole Mayan into the world type of thing, and so people were just like, all right, in 2011 we're going to make all depressing movies. Great movie. Ezra Miller steals the show. Moves at the pace of actually You Were Never Really Here. So if you guys heard me talk about that movie last year and you're like, oh, I'm not really sure, just know that if you like that movie or if you watched that movie and you liked it, I think you'll like this one too because it has the same type of kind of pattern, execution, and flow to it to where it translates. And so if you want to watch this really disturbing slow burn with some really great performances, we need to talk about Kevin is my pick for number 3.
And you have mentioned 2 movies, that and Hugo, that are just right outside my list. I love that movie too, and I won't be skipping on it, but I really, really had a strong reaction to that. Particularly the use of red. The cinematography in that film is great. It's Seamus McGarvey.
It's haunting.
Seamus McGarvey who literally shifted straight from that to the Avengers, which is a really interesting shift. But fantastic movie. All right. Speaking of hard watches, my number 2 is probably the hardest watch I've ever had with a 2011 movie. Yes, you heard me right. And that is Margaret. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. It's not Margaret. Margaret from director Kenneth Lonergan. Now, this is about a young woman named Lisa, played by Anna Paquin. She is the witness to and kind of semi-responsible for a bus accident that kills a woman played by Allison Janney, briefly. And the movie is basically about how she has to contend with the investigation that follows, particularly as it regards the bus driver, played by Mark Ruffalo, who she distracted at the moment of him trying to either pull up to a stoplight or go through it. Of course, the stoplight turns red at a crucial moment, and he goes through it, and that's how the accident happens. And what follows is basically Lonergan, who had made this movie back in 2005 before it entered a terrible period of being mangled in post-production, and also a bunch of legal issues, and an edit by Martin Scorsese and Thelma Schumacher that also went awry. Lonergan is basically forcing us to spend time with a character who is very nearly completely insufferable. There's not a whole lot here that is worth sympathizing about Lisa, but particularly because of the fact that she ends up roping a teacher played by Matt Damon into a romance that was mostly lost in the theatrical edition of the movie, but is fleshed out more in the 186-minute version of the movie that was later released on DVD with the Blu-ray. This is a movie with a great cast. I've already mentioned a bunch of really talented people. There's also Matthew Broderick, Jeannie Brulin, Jean Reno, Kieran Culkin, Olivia Thirlby, John Gallagher Jr., Kristen Ritter, Josh Hamilton. It's a great cast because it's Lonergan and he knows how to put together casts. And it's a long movie. Even the theatrical cut was 150 minutes, and it's, like I said, a tough sit because you are sitting with this unlikable character, hard to sympathize with as she tries to extricate herself from every bit of responsibility for this incident and everything surrounding it that she possibly can. But because it's Lonergan, he has a deep understanding of this character. She is also deeply human, and that means that in a sort of in an automatic way, you kind of sympathize with her because she's human, and it's just a great screenplay. He only writes great screenplays. He also did You Can Count on Me back in 2000, and of course Manchester by the Sea just a couple of years ago, and they're all great movies. All of them are, again, deeply human, even if they're sometimes troubling and also devastating. There's some stuff in here that is as devastating as kind of the initial inciting incident in the plot of Manchester by the Sea. Maybe not as overtly devastating as some of the backdrop of that movie, some of the stuff that we learn about the past, but similarly, though, it's fantastic for many of the same reasons, and it's also anchored by this great performance by Anna Paquin. I think that this is possibly the best performance of the decade. She's working on and it's technically a performance that was given in the previous decade, so it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's not surprising. A lot of people, whenever I noticed this a lot, there are only a few times when some trailer that announces Anna Paquin announces the fact that she's an Oscar winner, but she is an Oscar winner. She won an Oscar back when she was 12 for the movie The Piano back in 1993. So she is an Oscar winner. She knows how to give a good performance, and this one's an excellent performance all the way through. She navigates her way around this extremely terse dialogue that's written for her, and the same thing with Jeannie Berlin as the sister of the victim. These two actresses have this great scene where Lisa just gets herself deeper and deeper into a mess of misunderstanding on Berlin's part about her character's motivation here to visit her. It's a complicated movie to explain without getting into plot details, but it's tremendous, and I love it. So yeah, Margaret is my number 2, and this is another one again. Chase has no choice. He's going to see this.
I have seen it.
Oh, you saw it? I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah, so I've seen this one. I like it quite a bit. I still prefer like Manchester by the Sea. I need to watch more movies of his. He's
only made 3. So,
okay, so I've seen.
I mean, he's only directed 3, I should say.
Yeah, so I do like the movie quite a bit, and it's funny about the runtime because this movie was finished in 2007, but Lonergan and Fox Searchlight were fighting for like 4 years on the final cut of the movie, and it resulted in a lot of lawsuits and stuff. So this movie's got a lot of baggage with it, but it was finally released, and it's a long movie for sure. And it's rough to sit through, but it is an experience, and I'm not going to take away Joel's choice of that. It's a good pick. So obviously my top 2, you guys already know the 2, but which one is where? So as soon as I say number 2, you guys are going to know what my number 1 is, but my number 2, I'm going to go with Shame. This was the same weekend I saw Melancholia,
And hey, I'm gonna just step away real fast.
Okay. Very interesting weekend indeed. Yeah, Shame it's phenomenal. You want to talk about a powerhouse movie with performance, character, and overall direction, soundtrack, editing. Everything just clicks for me with this movie. Even if you're not a sex addict, if you are an addict of something, this is something, that will hit people in different ways. And you might have a different experience when you watch this movie. And I think that's something McQueen is kind of going for, something that strikes you in a way that, makes you feel kind of uncomfortable, but at the same time, like, presents an addiction that is very, very real and shows how someone can struggle with addiction, regardless if it's a sex addiction or drug addiction, any type of addiction, but presents the sex addiction that's not really portrayed in movies that much and does it in such a raw, beautiful, saddening way that you're kind of just mesmerized by it. Michael Fassbender is phenomenal. Had a great year with this and X-Men First Class because that was the first X-Men movie that he did. And this was my first introduction to Fassbender was Shame and, of course, X-Men First Class. And, of course, Carey Mulligan also, between this and Drive, first introduction to her as well. She's phenomenal in both movies, two completely different characters. There's even one point in Shame where I felt really bad for her because she's trying to help her brother out so much and she knows that she's lost him. And there's a scene in his apartment where she breaks down. It's gut-wrenching. And that's what McQueen does. He gets these really kind of raw, unfiltered performances out of his actors, whether it be Widows, 12 Years a Slave, Shame, and I haven't seen Hunger, but I'm assuming it's the same way. Where
it is
right. Like, so if I've seen 3 of his movies, I'm assuming that's how he does all his movies. But he just gets the best performances out of these people. And Fassbender is just he's raw, he's unfiltered, he's human. Most humans have an addiction to something, whether it be drugs, sex, technology, food, anything. It hits everybody. You don't have to be a sex addict to be really affected by this, but you can look at this from the viewpoint of, like, you see someone that's struggling, you want to help this person, you can't do that because you're in a theater just observing, and you want the people around him to help him, but it's really hard to kick an addiction, regardless of what addiction it is. It's just, it's an incredible movie. It's very moving. McQueen does that and provokes reactions out of you, and I think using the subject matter and the music in this is really, it's just emotional. It's like what Joel said about the explicit stuff. Yeah, there's explicit sex scenes in this, but it's not anything that's gratuitous. It's done in a way that fits the story, fits the character of Michael Fassbender and his addiction, and how his addiction takes a hold of him and takes a hold of him at different points throughout the day. Like, he doesn't have like a set schedule. Like, if it happens and like he needs to go do it, like he will do anything in his power to get off. And, it's just, like I said, it's really deeply affecting to just watch him struggle with this. And you just want him to get past all of it. And that's what Carey Mulligan's there to do. And it's a really powerful film for sure. So 2011, heck of a year for Fassbender and Mulligan, and my introduction to both of those people. So Shame is my number 2.
I had been introduced to Mulligan a couple of years before this with An Education.
Oh, wait. You were totally right. I forgot I watched An Education, and that's how I was introduced to Peter Skarsgård. So,
okay.
Yeah, never mind. I completely forgot that was earlier.
Yeah. she's a great actress. She hasn't done anything in a little while.
It
It's
was
interesting. So,
Wildlife last year was the last thing
oh
she did.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the thing, and it had been a while before that.
Right.
She hadn't done anything for, or at least on like in movies. I maybe she had a show going on. I'm not sure, but yeah, great movie. I'm not going to add anything else. I'm just going to go into my number one. My number one, you know, I don't want to jinx anything, but currently is my pick for the best film of the decade. And it's a real stunner. There's a lot here. All right, it's Asghar Farhadi's Separation. This is the best screenplay of the decade, if nothing else. So the setup here is that this married couple in Iran, Simin, played by Leila Hashami, and and Nader, played by Payman Moadi, are separating, or she's trying to separate from him. Of course, in this sort of society, the husband has to consent to that for it to happen. But she wants to go off and become an artist or something, and he is taking care of his ailing father, who is deteriorating rapidly. He has Alzheimer's, and it's very, very, very clear that he is in need of somebody 24/7 with him. And so this just causes a series of complications on its own. Just the face of this particular dynamic between the two, that she just simply isn't in love with him anymore. She wants to go off, even though they have a child, and she wants to take the child, and she wants to just go off on her own for a little bit, even if it's with a child. She wants to do something on her own without her husband. And the husband does not want this. We actually come to completely understand and sympathize with both of these perspectives. This isn't a movie about the clear-cut black and white of some difficult decision. The problem arises when when there's basically there's a lot that happens in this movie. There's a pregnancy that is ended. There is a near death for the father with Alzheimer's. There's a lot of stuff that's really, really tough to sit through, and but I think that what Farhadi is doing very well here is he doesn't at all. I think you could probably argue that some of these other movies that we've talked about that are super, depressing and all of that, to some degree, kind of marinate in that depressive quality. This one doesn't. That's not to say that it's a happy movie or that there's much humor, but I think that Farhadi, by basically placing his camera and his perspective on ground level, and allowing us to understand the characters first before any of the situation that arises, is able to treat this first as a human story and then as a movie with a plot. And really, there's not much plot here. There are events that happen, and there's sort of this mystery that develops around a sort of a physical act of sort of a physical pushback that the husband has at a specific moment that causes the pregnant mother, who is a nanny to the daughter here, she's pushed down the stairs, and the movie becomes about exploring the different perspectives of that particular situation, plus the legal ramifications surrounding it as well, the investigation that ensues, and also the various situations involving the father, having to justify whether or not he should stay with this woman and not allow her to leave. It's fascinating all the way through. It's impeccably acted by everybody. There's not a single wrong note in any performance, including the child. There's not a single unimportant shot or beat. everything here is important. Every single moment. Farhadi doesn't add any fat, but he also doesn't waste any time. And I think that it's just the most awe-inspiring screenplay I've come across this decade. The dialogue is rich without seeming like it's in any way heightened from reality. This is not, this is rich dialogue, but it's not Sorkin and it's not Lonergan. It's something far more naturalistic than either of those two are capable of. And it's just one of the great pieces of humanistic art I think that any director has been capable of this century so far, honestly. And yeah, I mean, I got a similar feeling when I saw Shoplifters. There's a similar vibe going on, the same kind investigative quality. It's not a mystery movie per se, but there is a mystery to be solved, and there are stakes involved all over the place in both. Those two movies kind of make up my top two. I think maybe a couple of viewings of them, will shake out which one is at the top, but this one is near the top, if not at the top, and it's truly, truly stunning. It was Roger Ebert's choice for the best film of 2011, and I'm pretty sure that it was at the top of a bunch of other lists that year. So yeah, if none of you have seen A Separation, this is definitely one that Chase is going to see before the end of the year, and because he's gotta. I know that he hasn't seen it, but I love it, and I think that it's stunning, just top to bottom. So that is my pick for the best film of the year of 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that, because I know a lot of people, including yourself, that have put that at least in their top three. Like this is one of those films that just swept across the board. So I'll definitely give it a shot. Towards the end of the year and stuff, when I'm sure Joel and I map out like what we're gonna watch and how we're gonna watch it with all of our schedules and stuff. So yeah, it's a great pick. And of course, spoiler, it was spoiled like 40 minutes ago. Drive is my number one. This came out when I was still in film school, and I was just so riveted by Refn and how he makes movies. And I've seen every movie to this day that he's done. Can't wait for the Amazon Prime show that he did with Miles Teller in a couple weeks. He's just one of those fascinating filmmakers that I will always give a chance, even if his films I don't really care too much for. Only God Forgives, there's definitely some quality there. Probably my least favorite, even though I still appreciate it. Neon Demon is, I like it a little bit more as I keep thinking about it. Drive will always be my favorite. But yeah, Ryan Gosling, just he's so good in this movie. I mean, he's the type of actor that does that kind of like minimalistic dialogue, kind of stern look, uses a lot of facial acting and stuff, and he nails it. He nails that presence of a stunt driver, and playing in the films, and then of course being a getaway driver when he does his bank heist. It's shot, like you said, in this like sleek, sexy thriller, but also self-contained, making these characters more human and not seeming like these ridiculous, like over-the-top action figures. It's like, no, these are real people in these real situations. It's just kind of shot, edited, and composed in this really kind of slick fashion. It's a really attractive movie in that regard, in terms of filmmaking and what you look for when you look for what is one of the best films of that year. You look for something that hits on all cylinders, acting, writing, directing, music. Oh my God. One of the best scores of the 2010s, hands down. It has like this 80s romp to it, but it's like really adrenaline fueled. So it's its own separate beast, but it's just so great to listen to. Carey Mulligan, fantastic.
Also great use of pre-existing songs, like
right.
the opening one, kind of opening one, which is Night Call.
Yes.
Love that. Or no. The opening is Night Call. There's also what was that other one? I'll have to think of the other one, but
Well, that music plays really well into like
great use of
the atmosphere of the film. It plays well into the
Mm-hmm.
logo design of the film. There's just something about it that has all these different things that come together that on paper probably would not work, but since Refn did it, he knocked it out of the park. Definitely one of my favorite Ron Perlman performances. He's such a terrifying delight to watch in this.
Yeah.
And then as well as
Albert Brooks.
Oh,
yeah.
Albert Brooks is so good.
Yeah.
Oh man, both of those guys together, and of course Bryan Cranston, great little supporting role. It's just it's a great movie. Like if you're one of those people that like, because I was 21 when it came out, I was actually aware of that woman that sued the movie because it wasn't Fast and the Furious. I remember that story, by
Yes.
the way. But
we probably would have talked about that. If we had a podcast and knew each other.
Railed against that woman. I'd be like, "Excuse you, do you not like no?" But yeah, it's just
funny.
I was working in the theater when it came out, and I remember seeing it. It was like me and two other people in the theater because a lot of people didn't know what it was about. So definitely the marketing was definitely botched, but I enjoyed every second of it. I still love it to this day. It rejuvenated my love for filmmaking again while I was still in school when I watched it. So yeah, it's a special movie, man. So Drive is my number one.
All right, folks. Those are our picks for the best films of 2011. We'll be back with this sort of concept in a couple of weeks. I don't know when yet, but we'll be, finishing this kind of thing off with 2010, and I think that we probably have the most boring answer for what the best film is. But anyway, in the meantime, this has been episode 278. Chase, where can people find you online?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's @RealChaseLee. If you want to follow my Copyright Striked YouTube channel, that is there down below as well. Yeah, you didn't think I forgot about that, Lionsgate. Now did you? And of course, with this podcast, if you're listening on Castbox, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you get this, please like, share, favorite. Keep doing your thing, guys. These past 3 episodes, huge spike in downloads. I don't know who's sharing this thing. I don't know why it's going viral, but thank you. It's just nice to see that people still enjoy listening to us, and we hope that you guys continue to listen to us. So, and of course, follow this podcast at Reel Me In Podcast on Twitter.
All right, and you can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. Right now I've got reviews of Aladdin as well as Booksmart, and I also caught up, of course, with Happy Death Day to You. So I've got all of those movies reviewed on my website. I can also be found on Twitter at Real Joel Copling, and on Letterboxd at jcopling. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Join us next week. We're going to be reviewing our most anticipated movie of May. I'm pretty sure that was both of ours, which was Godzilla King of the Monsters. So can't wait for that.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. You guys will get a bonus review from me. I will have my Ma mini review dropping, I think, on Wednesday. I think that's when the embargo lifts. So you'll get that from me. You'll get the episode usual time from both of us. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking.
Just remember to say Ma every time you say the word
Ma.
Ma.
Ma. They're just
Ma
like,
is really good.
Yeah, and as soon as they hear that, they're just like, unsubscribe, blocked and reported. I'm just like, thank you. So this has been episode 278, guys. I am Chase. That is Joel over there. Next week, 279. You guys are the best. Please come join back, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode. Next week, Godzilla King of Monsters. I'm super excited. Skip Aladdin. That's all we have to say. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.